TJ the Wheel Deal coming at you live with Bill White and Mark LeBlanc with another episode of Wheelers. What's going on, guys?
How's it going, TJ?
Man, we're good. So here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. There's not going to be a lot of cursing here tonight because I'm turning a new leaf. I'm about to be 50, and I'm going to get all the fucks out of the way before I turn 50 because I just don't think you should curse after 50. And you're not allowed to curse until you're like 80 because then at that point it's expected. You know what I'm saying? So from 50 to like 79.999, no cursing for TJ. So I'm going to get all these out. So I'm going to start it this way, okay? What the fuck is Bitcoin really? Like, what is it really? Okay. So I've been calling it funny money for a really long time. I've been calling it hocus pocus abracadabra because of its inception date of the white paper. Mark, you are a Bitcoin aficionado, a Bitcoin miner. You're a fucking fanboy of these miners, as am I. Do you know when Bitcoin, the white paper, was conceptualized or not conceptualized? Do you know when it was published?
I mean, I believe around 2013, but I'm not. I'm no expert in the origins of it. Actually, I've only really gotten interested since about 2017, 2018 was when I really started getting eyes on Bitcoin.
Gotcha.
And as I live in Canada, we had Hive and Bitfarms. Also Hut for a bit. I was domiciled in Canada, so I had eyes on those. But I was deeply invested in the blockchain space at the time, which ended up kind of being a bubble, just a bit of a catch term used in 2021. So a lot of my investments in Hive and Bitfarms, they just kind of stagnated for a bit. I sold off, and then I revisited just about 2 years ago. I really started getting deeper into it. But I've never even read the complete white paper on Bitcoin. I'm just about as familiar as the average guy, as in this decentralized network. I've always kind of had an anecdotal bad experience with a lot of banks. So that can sometimes blind people, right? I always tell people you got to be full conviction in it. If you're really, if you're going to invest most of your net worth in Bitcoin miners, especially, I know a lot of people that are just Bitcoin maxis that are pretty much all in just Bitcoin, which, I mean, you can argue for that. But personally, I've just been able to follow these miners pretty clearly over the last couple of years. And so I do feel like I have a bit of an advantage, but it does take up a lot of time, right? So,
So we'll clarify here in a second, and I'll tell y'all when the white paper was published. A lot of y'all already know in the chat. Don't spoil it for Bill. Bill, do you know when white paper was published for Bitcoin?
I mean, he said 2013. I thought Bitcoin's been around earlier just because I got in at one point really early on, and that was one of the biggest mistakes of my life, selling it, because I've never kind of believed in it. But I think it's earlier than that.
2009, I think I've heard people kind of mentioning general, like there's not too many people that were in it seemingly before 2013. So that's quite impressive. I've never heard that, Bill, that you were in early stages.
So here it is. October the 31st, 2008, the Bitcoin wallpaper is the original thesis paper written under the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto on October the 31st, 2008, that set the basic structure of the Bitcoin network. The paper is titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. What is October the 31st?
Halloween.
It's Halloween. It's fucking funny money.
Candy day, yeah.
It is abracadabra, hocus pocus, create shit out of fucking thin air. It is, to me, it is the most apropos date. It's the most appropriate date for Bitcoin white paper that could ever be picked to be published, because it's going to be something that several claim to understand, but only very few people do. It's like a fucking magic trick, bro. It's like Chris Angel. It's like David Blaine. I've been to all of these shows. David Copperfield at the MGM, and I have no fucking idea how they do it. Even after they show you how the tricks are done, I'm still a little confused. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm still a little confused because Chris Angel had this tell-all magic day series, and he was like exposing all of his cool tricks, even levitation and stuff. so disappointed, bro, because I really thought this dude had a deal with the devil or something, and he could like levitate. Turns out he can't defy gravity. God dang it. So I saw all of that shit, and I was like, man, it's just really, really cool that they're like, he's an illusionist. At the end of the day, he's an illusionist. So anyway, it was published on Halloween of 2008, and I have been calling it funny money ever since then. But there's nothing funny about making a lot of money with it. What I thought it was back then, and what I still think that it is to a certain degree, and I want to get y'all's take on this, is I thought, I have my wallet here. Well, I got one wallet. I got this other wallet here. So let's just say we got these two cards. But let's just say these are two. This is $100 bills, if you will, right? So essentially, the idea is people for services rendered, or if they want to purchase something from somebody and they don't want to have like a trail, they typically prefer to use cash. Fair enough? Like cold hard cash. You can come mow my lawn, or I was making a joke to my wife the other day. You did a sexual favor and I wanted to pay you in cash. You know what I'm saying? Like the reason people want to use cash is because they don't want there to be a receipt. They don't want to be a track record of it. In most cases, oftentimes some people maybe use cash for dirty shit, laundering, whatever the case may be, maybe drug deals or something like that. I don't know. And then there's other people that they just don't trust banks. I grew up in a real small town, and there was a lot of people that did not have a bank account, and you would ask them over and over, why? I don't trust banks. I don't know how that shit works. They had mattress money, bro. So essentially, if you want to give $100 to someone for services rendered, the only way that you can do that in person is they got to be in your vicinity, right? You take the money and you put it in their hands, and that's a peer-to-peer transfer in cash. And the bank no longer knows who has ownership of that $100. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Sounds right. Yeah.
That's fair. Okay, here's the challenge. Now enter Bitcoin and its utility. Is it useful? Bill, you're in Florida. Mike, you're where? In Canada?
Yeah, way up north.
Okay, let's have a fucking cool magic trick live on YouTube. Give me $100 in cash right now. How are you going to do it?
Hopefully put it in an envelope and send it to you, but it's
No,
pretty hard.
I need it
Pretty
right
hard
now.
to go. Pretty hard to go international for
I
Canadians.
I need $100. Can you get me $100 in cash right now? How are you going to do it? Just between me and you. Here's the thing. Here's the caveat. Here's the thing. I don't want nobody to know about it, and I don't want to have to trust a third party to make sure that we have an exchange of funds between you and I. You owe me $100 for that sports bet. I need that $100 in cash. How are you going to do it? We're not at arm's length. It can't happen. Fair enough?
Yeah.
We got to agree on that premise. Can you agree, Bill? You're over there in Florida. Mm-hmm. It's hard for you to give me $100 in cash right now, right? Without using some streams to be able to get there virtually.
Yeah, I mean, like even Venmo. I mean, sure, I might be able to send Mark money right now, Venmo. I'm not sure what the rules are in Canada, but
no, you can. But what I'm saying is, you have to involve someone else. Is what I'm saying.
Correct.
The idea for Bitcoin is that it's peer-to-peer transfer. So we're going to use an encryption, right? And you're going to essentially send me my $100 with this encryption, and I'm going to somehow magically delicious have it like a fucking leprechaun. Right? That's why I call it funny money, because nobody really understands those intricacies. There's going to be nerds that can come on this channel and they're going to say, well, there's these nodes and they're essentially like virtual bookkeepers. And then you're going to hear little things like Satoshis. And then you're going to hear about like these Bitcoin miners, and they're going to solve some very sophisticated algorithms to essentially make sure that the ledger is up to date, and their reward is going to be little Bitcoins, little Satoshis, and all this other hocus pocus bullshit. That's why, to me, it only makes sense that the show was created and published on Halloween, because it's a lot to swallow. It's tough. I'm just saying it's tough. Like, if you got to go explain something to like a group of 5 to 10-year-olds, or talk to me like a Labrador retriever, it's very hard to explain Bitcoin. In my opinion, it's difficult To me, I used to tell people it was kind of like an email with cash attached to it, with like a monetary value attached to it. So anyway, Mark, what do you think Bitcoin? What did you think Bitcoin was when you first got involved in the space? And what do you think that it's morphed into? Do you think that there's a difference now? Because I feel like the Bitcoin that I first looked at in 2014 was when I first looked at Bitcoin. What I thought it was, it's like peer-to-peer transfers of money, right? That idea still holds true. The 21 million still holds true. But what doesn't hold true anymore is that there's a fucking ticker on CNBC, because that wasn't happening back then. There isn't a shitload of money. It wasn't worth a trillion and some dollars, whatever the market cap is of Bitcoin now. There wasn't ETFs. There wasn't spot ETF. There wasn't like a shitload of money being made on the miners. None of that shit existed. Now it has legitimately morphed into an asset class that is very, very compelling. And then you'll listen to things like Michael Saylor saying this is essentially like digital gold. Instead of putting your money over here like in a safe or whatever, you rather just be able to put it here because it's just readily accessible. And you can hold it there in a network that's never been hacked, etc. They've given so many illustrations about like when Equifax was hacked and all this other shit. Y'all remember when Target got hacked? I got hit on that too. Like somebody used my credit card because they had hacked the Target systems, and I never go to Target, yo. But I went this time, and somehow I got jabbed for like $1,200, and I fought with Chase for like a year and a half, and finally they squared me up. So anyway, what was Bitcoin when you first started in your mind, and what has it grown into?
Well, I mean, like I said, I kind of got eyes on it in 2017, 2018. I'd heard the name before. I'd heard of the Silk Road. So, I mean, all those nefarious connotations. I've heard of that. I wasn't ever really interested in the utility of Bitcoin. I never really saw it as a seamless kind of thing. So, originally, again, I was getting into Bitcoin miners, and everyone was really pumping XRP. I wasn't really a fan of it back then. So I bought a little bit of Bitcoin, but I still wasn't really convinced on the story. And ever since, it's kind of, it's evolved a fair bit, as you said, right? With legitimization, mainstream media taking a hold of it, and still the utility isn't quite there. So if we're talking about a peer-to-peer payment system, it doesn't really have the speed. It usually comes with a rather exorbitant cost. So even in 2017, 2018, when the price was considerably lower than what it is presently, to me, it just really wasn't worth putting too much money into it. So obviously I regret that, as most people do. I only picked up 1/20th of the Bitcoin and held on to it for a couple of years, which kind of just took a bit of a dip, and then eventually everything started ripping. So it wasn't until about 2020 where I started mining ETH, and that's where I started getting more of a clearer picture, just a clearer picture of what exactly utility, transactions per second, layer 1, layer 2. So any kind of forks of these bigger, again, whether you want to call them decentralized, that also, I feel like that changed a fair bit, right? The decentralization aspect is definitely not what we, again, pictured what it would have been back in 2017, 2018. That was definitely the talking point. We're looking at permissionless, we're looking at trustless. Again, if you can take out the middleman, then in theory you would think, oh, there'd be lower fees, right? And as you mentioned earlier about how would I send you money, I mean, living in Canada, it's really hard to get money over the border. And if you send me $100 US, I'll probably get a knock on the door by CRA. So I think that's something that I see maybe with time we could see maybe more mainstream adoption. I just don't see Bitcoin being a hands-on utility thing. I just don't see it really taking off in that. And again, the store of value argument could be debated, as it is considerably volatile. So that's something I'd like to kind of touch base on. Is, again, I've never paid anyone in Bitcoin. I've never really had the need to. We just do e-transfers here, which is similar to a Venmo. I believe Venmo is owned by PayPal, but we couldn't even Zelle. I don't even think we could still Zelle anything over there. So that's where all of a sudden we run into a bunch of snags, and I just question the utility of it. So when costs were exorbitant, when all the fees were in question, I just started doing all my research in Bitcoin miners. So instead of exposing my capital to Bitcoin directly and then put it in cold storage, I just got into Bitcoin miners as a proxy play, essentially.
I hear you. Let's welcome, I'll get to you in just a second, Bill. Let's welcome Diego Montes de Peralta. Wow, we got a handful of cool names there.
How are you? Last name, man. Hey, how are you?
How are you?
I'm very fine, man. Thank you for having me on your show. It's the first time here. Hey, Bill. Hey, Mark. How are you doing?
Nice one. Nice to meet you, Diego.
The string got a lot better looking with a cool accent.
I'm sorry?
The string got a lot better looking with a cool accent. This is good.
Yeah. I am connecting from Lima, from Peru, man.
Wow.
Down here in South America.
Very
Big fan of
cool.
your show, man. Being writing to you.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you. What are your thoughts on Bitcoin, Diego? Are you bullish on Bitcoin, or are you bullish, or is it more bullshit? Like, where are you at with Bitcoin?
No, I'm bullish. I have around 50% of a Bitcoin in Leaden. It is some storage that used to pay around 8% yield. So I just deposit it over there and forget about it. I don't like to trade Bitcoin because for me, it's so hard to put a correct price on it. And it's more of the technicals, and I'm not that guy that specializes in technicals. So I just bought some whole half a coin, which for me is enough to be, at peace with myself. It beacons rockets to the moon, and I won't feel like I was left it apart. That's why I got to my half a coin, I put it in the Leaden, and I forget about it. And then I have some proxy plays. Just today, I bought a CLSK call that expires in a month. I followed you on your Riot puts. I have some of those. I have some Mara cash secure puts as well. So I'm still bullish on it, and I'm still playing it, but I don't trade Bitcoin directly that much. I think you're going to get burned on that.
I hear you. Bill, I feel like I know your answer, but let's hear it. Where were you at with Bitcoin when you bought it for $100? And then where are you at with Bitcoin now? Tell them your Bitcoin story, Bill. I think we all need to have a little episode called "Here's My Bitcoin Story." Like when I was in LA and you were around a gunshot for whatever reason. Now you have an LA gun story, right? So what's your Bitcoin story, Bill?
Before I tell my story, let me tell you what I initially thought of it as, because that was your question.
Yeah,
I thought of it as a plan B, that if I ever, I sometimes get a little kind of government conspiracy type person, and it was just like, hey, if I had to leave the country, would I be able to get money somewhere else without having to travel with it, because it's kind of restrictions on everything. There's all these know your customer rules. So I thought of it as just kind of like a way to kind of circumvent the government initially. But again, I was in, here comes my story. I was in it before Bitcoin even reached $100. So at one point I owned about, I don't know, 30, 40 Bitcoin. And I probably made about $4 or $5 grand off it or something like that. And I thought I hit the jackpot and I sold it. I said, fuck that plan B.
So hold on. You said you had how much?
I'd had 30 or 40 Bitcoin at one point.
Okay, so let's just pull out the old trusty.
I don't even listen. I've gone many years without doing the math. I don't think I want to know.
Yeah, he doesn't want to revisit this.
Well, Bill, what are friends for? Just to let you sleep a little bit heavy on the.
Truth be told, it wasn't a lot of money. I didn't put a lot of money into it, right? So it was trading below $100.
So help me out, guys. How many zeros is that? What? So $2.2 million, Bill, in Bitcoin.
Damn.
Yeah, shit. That's worse than my Google story. Okay, keep going.
No, that's about it. I said, well, hey, I can't believe that this actually went up this much, and I was just planning on buying it small amounts at a time, have a little stash on the side type of thing. I'm kind of interested in it. And then it went up. I was like, well, let me sell it. And I did that a few times, just kind of trading it, but I never actually believed in it. I don't know. I was more interested in it. I never really fully understood it. And the more I studied it, the less interested I was actually in it. But it just kept going up. So, yeah, I guess I'm not right about it. So, but I don't know. Let's see.
And you never got back in, did you?
I mean, I still have like a tiny bit of Bitcoin.
Just a small exposure.
Yeah.
Hey, well, guys, let's just put it in perspective, okay? Y'all know what the first purchase with Bitcoin recorded on the ledger is on the blockchain? This is on the thing about the Bitcoin is there's not the anonymity that people think, right? Because they can go track every transaction. It goes from an address to an address, right? Like that's how this thing works. So do you know what the first recorded transaction was used, like what they used to buy Bitcoin or what they bought with Bitcoin? And it was 10,000.
Wasn't it coffee?
I think it was a pizza, right?
Bitcoin pizza day, 2 pizzas.
Yeah, I think it was a pizza, and this guy's very famous.
Papa John's, check this out. So on May the 22nd, 2010, Florida resident. So if you want to be anybody in this world, you can do anything you want to do, be anything you want to be. Don't be this person, okay? Laszlo, can't even pronounce that name, paid 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 Papa John's pizzas and what is largely considered to be the first purchase ever made with the then experiential, I don't know what the hell's going on. Digital currency. Bro, how much money is that now? Like, I think I have to turn the calculator sideways to make that one happen.
Bunch of zeros, man.
Like, holy shit, dude. That's like worse. Might be worse than the dude who sold his stake in Apple for like $5,000. Don't be that guy either. Like, my goodness, dude.
I mean, we can't live with regret, right? When he sold it, it was well worth it for him. He probably paid half of that.
Pizza went down hard, bro. I guarantee you that pizza, he's still burping it to this day.
He's allergic to pepperoni now.
Yeah, at least he had the pizza. There's some people that doesn't recall their password, and they've lost millions of dollars because they can't recall their fucking password. That's even worse, man.
That also happened to me with, you mentioned Hive earlier. Did Hive did it either went bankrupt or re-domiciled somewhere else? That one in Chapo. I don't know if you remember Chapo. But I think Chapo re-domiciled in Switzerland. I don't know. I lost Bitcoin in that too.
Yeah,
many rug pulls, but they all benefit the people that are still holding today, though, right?
They're that's somewhere. Lost. That's the aggravating thing, that people say they're lost. Bullshit. Someone has them.
Yeah.
So here's the question. Bitcoin's been around since 2000. It was the Bitcoin white paper was published on Halloween. That's why I call it funny money, abracadabra, hocus pocus. On October the 31st, 2008. And then I guess kind of like went official in 2009, if you will. The first recorded transaction was 2010, many believe. So that's been about 15 years, right? I think it just had its anniversary, I believe. Or it's going to here on Halloween, the white paper. Do you think that it's around in the next 15 years? I know that the year 2140 is when the 21st millionth Bitcoin, however the English works out. That's when there's no more Bitcoin to be mined. So do you think that it makes it to 2140? We're not, none of you is going to be here unless we do some weird Neuralink shit with Elon Musk and we're living in Mars or whatever, however that works out, right? I don't have enough money for that ticket. So let's just assume that, for argument's sake, that we're not going to be here. But let's say 15 years. I feel like, with God's favor, hopefully everybody on the set here and everybody in the chat will be around in 15 years. Does Bitcoin survive another 15 years, or does it morph into something that is unrecognizable to the imagination today? Because if you would have told me in even 2014, when I first got exposed, that it was going to be all of this in 2024, I wouldn't have believed you. Bill, you didn't believe either. Now you would have held on to your Bitcoin, right? That's fair. I made $50,000 in 2015 day trading Bitcoin. I thought I was hot stuff. Don't own any Bitcoin now. Who knows how much money that would have been? Because I was screwing around with my little portfolio of like $50,000 and just day trading this thing. I mean, it was nonstop. That it was so easy to do for me at the time. I mean, I probably wouldn't even be on YouTube right now because I could have just stayed with Bitcoin and called it a day. But I didn't know. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, right? So 15 years from now, let's start with Bill. What do you think Bitcoin is, if anything?
You have to start with me, huh? I think it'll exist. I think you'll have better. I mean, you already have better versions of it now. So, but for whatever reason, it's considered the store of value because it's the first and most adopted. I just think it's a trading asset. I mean, I don't think it'll. It's just it can't be a store of value because it just fluctuates too much, and I don't think it'll ever not fluctuate enough where it's a true store of value. I think it's going to have wild ups and downs, and even the biggest Bitcoin bulls will even say, like, you know, this thing could drop X%, tomorrow. Or I just think it's a trading asset. As weird as that sounds, it's going to be used to transfer money to some degree, but not legitimately on an everyday scale. You're not, with the fees are too expensive. You're not going to go and buy a coffee with Bitcoin. I don't know. I'm going to go with trading asset.
What about you, Mark? Bitcoin in 15 years. Give me a minute or two. Where do you think it is?
I mean, there's no doubt in my mind it'll still be around in 15 years. It'll still be, I mean, as long as there's electricity in the grid, it'll be mined till 2140. The profitability of miners will no doubtedly go, it'll get pretty slim is the way I see it. I'm not hyper bullish. I don't see Bitcoin going to $100 million anytime soon. But even if it stays, if the CAGR keeps going this way and we're getting about 50-60% annual returns, I could see it being a store of value long term. Just a trading vessel is definitely something that could be more feasible. I just think it takes a long time for people to truly get orange pilled. And at this point, I mean, again, I'm no Bitcoin maxi. I've got more money in Solana than I do in Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
But I see that as being more useful. And again, there's only one Bitcoin, so it could be argued that we should be stacking. I can appreciate the fact that everyone gets Bitcoin for what they deserve to get it at is a slogan that's going around lately. So
Right.
There's always a bunch of emotions to it, right? I just try to look at it, sit on Bitcoin as long as I can. And I mean, I don't have any reason to sell the small amount of Bitcoin that I have. And anyone that's really hesitant, I just tell them buy 1/100th. I mean, it's not a number that'll break the bank, but if I'm wrong and it does go to $100 million, that's pretty decent. I mean, people are getting a great return off of investing $600-700 US right now. So
that's sorry to cut you off, but that's exactly what worries me is that everyone seems to have an exit price. It's like if you put your money here and it goes up a lot,
yeah,
you can cash it out and get real money, like get actual money like that.
Yeah.
There's something weird there where everyone has a target price of what they could cash out in case it goes up.
I like to think of it as the ultimate test of greed. Down the line, everyone's going to be challenged, right? And I mean, it might have hit you early on. It might hit you in 6 months from now. But if you are holding one whole Bitcoin, at what point? Again, a lot of people that we watch, they'll get out at 100, or all of a sudden it's a moving target, right? 150, maybe 250. The ultimate test of greed is coming, and also maybe the ultimate charitable act of philanthropy as well. So people that truly believe in it, they're going to take it to their grave, or if you want to pass it on to your kids, fine. But the concept that it could be lost is incredibly stressful for most. So that's where I think a lot of people aren't even close to being comfortable enough to buying, if you want to call it an asset. I mean, to me, it's an asset. I'm going to hold on to it for as long as I need to. But again, the fact that there's so many proxies, I think, to go back to your question, in 15 years from now, I mean, it's going to be a whole different, it's going to be a whole different ball field, right? There's just going to be, I would imagine the Lightning system is going to be something that's going to be utilized. Again, my experiences, I haven't been to El Salvador yet, but I have a few friends that have been living there for many years. A lot of people that have just given up on Canada and don't want to come back. They're using it at Starbucks. But these are people that have held Bitcoin for decades, right? So to use a few sats to pay off their coffee, to rent a hotel, or, smaller things like that, it really doesn't matter if you've been holding for the better part of 10, 11 years or so. The problem comes when you're buying it at 70, 65, 60K US. All of a sudden, I think there's just going to be a slowing down of people using it, of people trading it and swapping it. And again, that it has to be correlated to the price. If we see 100 grand, I personally am not seeing it hitting 100 grand by the end of the year, but we could be pleasantly surprised in the next few weeks. Even the volatility has been quite impressive.
Well, you said your friends are living in El Salvador and they use it to buy a coffee.
Yeah.
And I know one of the big things with Bitcoin is that it's kind of inflation resistant based on the limited supply that there will be in Bitcoin, right? But if you, what is the fees associated with getting a coffee? So you buy a coffee in El Salvador, I would imagine it's like equivalent of like $1, right? And you probably pay $1 or $2 in fees. I mean, talk about inflation, right? So, I mean, if it's going to actually work long term, they have to find a way to get the cost down. But but does that hurt the miners at that point, right?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, a bigger portion of the miners' money is going to come from the fees, not so much the mining at some point, right?
Very true.
And so, if the main goal would be, if you want Bitcoin to be usable to bring the cost down, that's going to, you'd have to pick it up in volumes. So it would really have, first you'd have to get the cost down, and then you'd have to pick up the volumes and actually get people to use it so that it becomes more, of a usable currency. That's kind of the progressive steps to it. But how do you get the cost down? Right. And that's why I see this going nowhere ultimately. It's, as far as like a utility on a day-to-day basis, whether or not it's eventually a store value, don't know. I'm not going there with that. But on an everyday usage basis, I don't see how it would ever work, because there's already better options out there.
What about you, Diego? Where do you see Bitcoin in 15 years?
Well, I think that Bitcoin has already demonstrated that it has a lot of staying power, and as long as the people will continue to be orange pilled, as Mark was saying, and people can get beyond this wall and open their mind and really do them homework and study a little bit, understand all the facts that support the Bitcoin movement and all that is behind it, I think it's already been proven that this thing is only going up. And there are a lot of catalysts yet that will continue to impulse this driving upwards in the price. I'm not going to make any kind of predictions, but just picture this. We only have today a couple of countries that are holding Bitcoins in their reserves.
Right.
And there are some legislations are the problems. There are not any kind of regulations. That's what's holding Bitcoin and all the crypto to move forward. So that's why I think that the coming elections are going to be key for that. But I don't want to get off the point. Just imagine when the regulations come abroad, and also the institution and the corporations start stacking Bitcoins as well. They have a lot of cash staying on the side, going into very, very less performing assets. So I think that as long as we will continue into this movement where Bitcoin is getting more mainstream and more people are open to this, I've done my homework, and everybody who listens to me has done his homework. They understand that there's no going back because the system is failed. So corporations will have to understand it sooner rather than later, or they are already doing that. So I think that Bitcoin will be higher up and to the right, as you like to say. I think it's going to be mainstream. I think that problems that Bill is mentioning are already being worked on with a Lightning network and with Lightning 2.0 that will come afterwards. And because there's only going to be one Bitcoin, and we already have one. So yeah, that's my view.
So let's look at Bitcoin real quickly. I mean, let's just look at the market cap, if you will, and stuff. And I have my, everybody has a theory, right? Everybody has a theory. If I could figure this out here in a second. Here we go. So there's Bitcoin. So it's currently trading at a little under 62,000, and then it's got a market cap of over $1 trillion. So I think that because it is becoming more mainstream now, I think that a lot of big financial institutions, the BlackRocks of the world, the Vanguards of the world, the people that really rule the world, right? If you ever want to do a fun exercise, take any ticker. There's about 12,000 of them that are publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange, and look at institutional ownership. And it's not going to be a coincidence that BlackRock and Vanguard own a little bit of almost all of those tickers. And I think that as they continue to put Bitcoin on their balance sheets, I think there is such a thing as too big to fail. Mm-hmm. I think that Bitcoin is approaching. So what do I think Bitcoin's going to be, regardless of my understanding or lack thereof? I think that Bitcoin is approaching the too big to fail status because there's too many people with really big hands in the cookie jar, and they figured out how to grab a lot of cookies. They figured out how to make a lot of money with this asset class via fees and everything else, bro. It ain't going fucking nowhere, yo. But maybe up and to the right if you're willing to hold it. And there's a lot of people that are going to make a lot of money via fees and everything else along the way. And they're like, if the crackheads want Bitcoin crack, we're going to supply it to them because we like getting the big. We like getting the vigorous. So I think that you got to give the junkies what they want. And there's a lot of Bitcoin junkies out there, dude. I have never seen in all of my years of investing, I have never seen an asset class that is so polarizing, dude. Like people either fucking love it or they love to hate on it. They're the New York Yankees, they're the Lakers, they're the Dallas Cowboys, all wrapped up into one, bro. They either people love them or people love to hate them. That's what Bitcoin is in the finance world to me. A lot of people don't talk about it that way, but my God, everybody has a fucking opinion on it. Everyone. Go ask some people, they have an opinion of Microsoft. They're like, I like Bill Gates. He's okay. I think he's an asshole. I don't know. They're not that passionate about it, though. They're not that passionate about it. But fuck, dude, people cheer for Bitcoin like it's the New York Yankees, or they'll cheer against it like it's my Dallas Cowboys. And I don't think it's going anywhere because now there's real big asset classes like the Fidelities and whatnot that manage trillions of dollars that are able to offer it via the 401ks to all the Bitcoin junkies.
Yeah, TJ, I agree with you 100%, and that's why
Where's it gonna go? I'm just saying it ain't gonna go anywhere, bro. Like there's no way. They've already figured out how to capitalize on that market, in my opinion. And
that's exactly why I said I see it as a good trading asset. Because when you talk about like some of these institutions that are bringing Bitcoin on their balance sheet, but to what degree? Because is BlackRock buying Bitcoin as their own investment, or are they buying Bitcoin and it's in custody of someone else? Meaning like that it's just on the books to be able to make the fees off of. Because there is a big difference. Because you can have assets on your book and buying, you're just kind of intermediary between all the people buying and selling it. But you could also have it on your books as saying, this is my asset. And I don't think BlackRock is committing to that. They're just committing to getting the Bitcoin and then having it there so that it can be traded back and forth. And there is a difference. It may not matter at the end of the day, like as far as if Bitcoin goes up or down. I don't think BlackRock's actually investing their own money in it the way that people think they are. Like, MicroStrategy is.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I think MicroStrategy, if I had to do a one line, like, what is it? It's the world's largest Bitcoin Ponzi. It's going to dilute shareholders, and it's going to buy Bitcoin, and it's probably going to become either the richest company in the history of man if Bitcoin does what this dude thinks it's going to do, or there's going to be a shitload of money with a shitload of people that had the rug pulled out from under their feet, and it's going to make Tulip Mania look like a fucking joke.
There's no other option. Those are the only two options.
This dude, dude, is there a bigger Bitcoin maxi than this dude, Michael Saylor? My goodness. I mean, I'm just saying, dude, anytime I hear him do a little 5 or 10 minute snippet, dude, I'm I think about just buying Bitcoin directly. I don't like to because I can't sell options. Now you kind of can, right? With this whole spot ETF thing that they're doing now. But I feel like I've made a shitload of money on the Bitcoin miners. Everybody always wants to act like they're the Bitcoin know-it-all. There's people in the chat right now. I'm like, well, show me your 2.5 million on the Bitcoin miners and Bitcoin, and then I'll listen to you. Not shut the fuck up. Take a seat. Because at the end of the day, you know how to make money off the asset class, yes or no? Because that's what it comes down to in the game that we play. You got to figure out how to buy low and sell high. You can't figure that. So cash your puts, cover calls, learn how to roll, watch the fucking channel, and take some notes. You know what I mean? Because I know how to make money off that asset class, but I don't understand it. I don't need to make money with my strategy. That being said, if I understood it more, and I'm trying to devote the time, it's just so hard because there's only so many hours in the day. But I want to start devoting 10 to 15 minutes a day to really getting educated like some of these people have in Bitcoin, because maybe it is worth gobbling up 1 or 2 or 3 Bitcoin and just kind of letting it ride, because why not? You know what I mean? If you didn't know, you were easily in that position several years ago, Bill, to just leave it on your personal balance sheet, but for whatever reasons you chose not to, because you were just looking at it like a swing trade, if you will.
It was so early on that it wasn't what it is. Of course.
But what I'm saying is, has Bitcoin proven itself enough to us, and I'm asking myself more so, that maybe it's time to stop looking at it as just a swing trade? Could this be the trade?
Maybe. The only problem that I have is the definition or the reasons why you should invest in Bitcoin keep changing. So I don't know how to feel about that, and maybe it's changing for the right reasons. I don't know. I'm just saying every benefit that was initially brought up about Bitcoin has come to not be true, right? So it's like, there's no government involvement. Yes, there is. There's everything that you can really. It's easy to transfer peer to peer, and it's affordable.
But it's still decentralized. It is, right? That was the core thing, right? That's the core piece.
It is decentralized. Yes. Yeah. That's the one core thing that actually probably.
Well, I think the government's trying to oversee, but the government doesn't really have their hands in the cookie jar too much. It's not like we're China. They outlawed it in China, right? Didn't that happen sometime? And when I was day trading, I feel like that happened. I don't know if that still goes on. I don't follow the shit. I only know how to make money with it.
Yeah,
I don't have that kind of time, because I got other asset classes that have a real intrinsic value that I kind of understand, and that's where I spend my time. Just calling a spade a spade. I don't pretend to be anybody that I'm not in the market, dude. I'm not.
But does the government not have their hand in it? They could lock up Coinbase in a snap of a finger. They could shut it off immediately, and that's the biggest exchange. So I don't know. I don't know. Either they can shut it off whenever they want, or they're behind the whole thing. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. With some more, it seems like there's some very educated folks in the chat, but they don't click the link, you know. So I don't know if they're just keep
Yeah,
over.
come on in. Like,
You don't need to show your face. If you're ugly, bro, I'm ugly too. You can just hide the camera. If you got a face for radio, it's all good. I'm saying I want to get educated. That's why I'm keep talking about it. I've been listening to spaces. There's a lot of Bitcoin nerds over there on like that. Like I'm part of this. Really thankful to be part of this community called Bitcoin Mafia. My goodness, dude. Like there are some people that like, dude, they just know this shit. Like they're very convincing too. Like they're very convincing too. Like I mean, like I'm almost convinced they know who Satoshi is, even though I know they're full of shit there because nobody knows. But I'm just saying, like they make very good bull arguments, and I don't hear as many bear arguments aside from. Here's a question for you guys. Where does Bitcoin get its value? Is it simply because of the scarcity of this 21 million? I mean, it's not until 2140 when that happens. So that's like, I can't even comprehend how far away that is. So where does it get its value? Why is it at 63,000 versus 6,000?
I think it's all supply and demand. And that's part of my bear thesis, because there's always a bull and a bear thesis within one, right? So part of my bear thesis within the Bitcoin concept is the whales and the thing that the manner how can they manage the price, you know, because they are so huge. So the only thing that gives Bitcoin its value, it's the balance between the supply and the demand. And being is already still so much whales and so big of them, at least that's my perspective. Maybe I'm wrong. That's what I'm still scary on Bitcoin. I think that the price can be still very manipulated.
Yeah, but if that's true, then it's not a store of wealth.
Yeah, I want to respond to this comment because I've been making jokes like nobody knows who Satoshi is, right? And who's the gentleman, the guy that buys leaps all the time that's real into Bitcoin and Bitcoin miners?
Jesse Dow.
Jesse Dow. So I saw one of his pods and he said that he thinks this guy named Al Finney. And I was like, I'll get the hell out of here, right? With that bullshit. Well, dude, I've been researching a little bit more. Like, I think that this dude, it might be onto something here. You know what I mean? Like, it might very well be whoever the hell Al Finney is, but this dude's dead already. So it's one of those questions that may never be answered. Anyway, I just wanted to address that because this John Frank character who seems to be knowledgeable about this whole thing.
But so are we saying that likely if that guy had a wallet and it wasn't left to anybody, or if it was in cold storage, then those, you know, his Bitcoins wiped out? Are we saying, is that what we're saying? So
I don't know if it's 1 million Bitcoin, right? Is that the argument, or is I've heard 4 million? That's where Bitcoin, and I say like Halloween is so appropriate for Bitcoin. The way I started this whole thing, like as a joke initially, and let's welcome Eddie to the chat. Is because as the story unfolds. Have you ever sat around the fire as a kid and like I had shitty parents, bro? They tried to scare you. I was at a ranch and they would tell us these things like the fucking Llorona. If you speak Spanish, you know what I'm talking about with the Llorona, dude. They will scare the living shit out of you as a kid with this pinche Llorona. So I feel like Bitcoin is kind of taking a Llorona type of a form where it's like as the story gets told by more and more people, the legend grows a little bit more, if that makes sense. And I mean, I don't know. It almost feels a little campfire-ish. What do they call them? Wives' tales or something like that. So it's hard to say. I mean, it's hard to say. Anyway, Eddie at Ed Monkeys, welcome to the channel. Let a little light. Shed your light on Bitcoin, man. What the F is Bitcoin?
What's good, guys? What's good, Bill, Mark, Diego?
What's up, Eddie?
Eddie Money, like the singer.
Ed Monies though. We took a couple of the letters out. Yeah, bro. When I'm thinking about Bitcoin, I mean, to be honest, it felt like a folklore the whole time. You know, it felt fake. up until this year. Even prior to 2020, like anytime any news came on about Bitcoin, it was like the crypto Twitter was just running to talk about it, share it, yada yada. But now I look back at it and I'm like, now that there's an ETF, now that people are like wealth managers are putting a % on people's portfolios, it's like it's never gonna go away now. Like they let us in, they opened the door, they let us in, and you're not going out. And TJ, I appreciate what you're saying, bro. It's the story. The best story wins, man. Best story wins. So this is a hell of a story. It's from a guy named Satoshi Nakamoto, or a group of people, Satoshi Nakamoto, that nobody knows. And I thought it was cool to like play with it. So I go ask Grok, you know, friendly with the AI. So I go ask Grok, what does Satoshi mean in Japanese? And I did it individually for Satoshi and Nakamoto. And I mean, the basic, or you guys can go do it yourself right now. The basic origin of what it says was central to intelligence. That's what Satoshi Nakamoto came out to. So I was like, what? Like that blew my mind. I barely realized that this year. I saw some memes going after I did the AI search myself. I confirmed it and I said, well, what does that mean? Like, is someone messing with us now? Does the story take another turn? It's the ultimate like seed being planted in the financial
CIA.
Yeah. So it's very interesting, but I mean the story itself is 21 million. I think if you go look on Robinhood and you go look at the circulating supply, it's not 21 million, it's like 19. I believe that like millions have not moved since 2008. So they assume that those are lost, but who knows, you know, they could be lost, could be there's different worlds right now when it comes to Bitcoin. They branched it off to do like bit ordinals. They've done it like Bitscriptions and stuff, and they played around a little bit with the code. But what's really interesting about it is that sats are becoming relevant, and now a sat is just like a broken down version of what Bitcoin is. So when you buy a Bitcoin, if you buy a fraction of a Bitcoin, it's Satoshis. So these sats are starting to be popular. People are selling sats that supposedly touched Satoshi Nakamoto's wallet. They're inscribing stuff on one sat that people are paying multiple Bitcoins for to obtain that sat. So it's a real transfer of wealth. Even after you think about the run up to 60K, it's a big transfer of wealth, even in like art and like, I don't know. I know a lot of people said like NFTs were money laundering and stuff like that. I can see that being even more so with Bitcoin as we move forward, because it's more accepted by the bigger institutions and stuff. So yeah, just wanted to throw my seed in there. I was in the chat racing from the iPad. So
no, I like it. I think that Bitcoin, since its inception, maybe not since its inception, but I want to say since, for me, probably like, so who got me excited about Bitcoin? It was Tom Lee. Tom Lee was on the finance networks and he was pumping it like he pumps everything else. And it was probably around 2014, 2015. And he was like, if you take gold and if people just put a certain amount that they have in gold into Bitcoin, this shit's going to the fucking moon, right? That was essentially the Tom Lee sales pitch. And I bought it hook, line, and sinker. And then now I look back and everything that Tom Lee kind of says, I mean, everybody was like all up on Kathy Wood's nuts. I mean, dude, Tom Lee gets a lot of shit right too. And in much bigger ways with higher frequencies. You know, Kathy was right on Tesla. You know what I'm saying? She was right early on Tesla. People thought she was crazy, but, you know, she's kind of having the last laughs on that one. And I think she's going to laugh the hardest even at the end on that one. But that's just one. But, you know, that's in investing, guys. You make most of your money on one or two. That's it. You know, the rest of it, it's kind of like, you did okay, base hits, walks, but your home runs are only going to be a couple, 2 or 3 stocks at the most, in my opinion. In my experience anyway, all the books I've read. So I think Bitcoin is just the best story going for like 10 years now. And it just keeps grabbing more and more legs and more energy. And I think it's going to hit that phase. And I don't think it's hit that phase yet of, let me just throw 1,000 at it. Let me just throw 10,000 at it and see what happens. Because there's a lot of thousands and 10,000s out there, dude. And that shit can multiply into billions and billions and billions of market cap.
Yeah, I was
So
listening to Mitch stream today, TJ, and he said he basically was like, notoriously the September 20th price for Bitcoin, it on the halving year is it never goes lower than that. So I'm staring at that. I think it was like 63K or something on September 20th, and I'm like, I don't know if it's not going to go lower than that, but it's a story, man. If the story keeps going, I don't even get worried about people who put their money in there or want it on the side as a like. They're an investor, and money, you know, different types of investments just excite them. I don't see no problem with that. I do get nervous though with guys like what MicroStrategy is doing when they're just buying hell of Bitcoin, putting it on a balance sheet, borrowing against it, buying more. Like it gets kind of crazy, and I get worried when it gets to that point because if anyone can figure out how to break Bitcoin, it's going to be these institutions for sure. It won't be a retail investor.
I hear you. What are your thoughts, Mark? You've heard a lot. I know you're really big into this space, specifically the miners. Is this story just so good that people are just eating it up, and then people add like a little bit more here and there, and it just gets spicier and spicier. In Spanish we call it putting crema on the taco.
Yeah.
So are they still putting a little cream on the taco? What's going on here?
I can't speak to cream on tacos, but I'm just
it's just embellishing a little bit in Spanish, you know, like
I'm very conscious that the story is developing, right? And I just want to state that I'll never be 100% all in on Bitcoin, and I don't think anyone should always be 100% conviction on anything, just because then you could set yourself up for a bit of failure. And again, if you're so convinced that you're going to hold on to it till the day you die, the ultimate test of greed is going to come someday, whenever it is. It might be when you're old and you're down and you're beat up and you got some bills, or you want to buy that next house or a vacation property. To me, I think that the whole script changed early on in January. So I was trying to raise some bells. Some of my friends were really skeptical. And I said, as soon as the ETFs are approved, the supply demand curve is going to flip right over. And again, looking at 2017, 2018, there was way more supply. The demand wasn't as hot as what it is now, but if you look at the amount of Bitcoin mined since January, there's 165,300 or so that have been mined. But just the ETFs alone have bought almost 300,000. So we're almost seeing a 2x in demand, and that's only talking about the ETFs. So I think there's going to be an important part to play. All these Bitcoin miners are going to constantly invest, really look at it, a bigger picture, right? There's a massive need for electricity to run this network.
Right.
That's only going to keep growing. So again, I totally understand how some people kind of see it as a Ponzi type structure, but I mean, I question who's getting rich at the top. Now that BlackRock's in, we kind of see that, okay, now, like Bill was saying earlier, he was alluding to the fact that all these fees are really what are paying miners bills in the future. With every halving, 50% reduction in revenue, you got to double the cost just to be able to produce that one Bitcoin, right? So it's going to be very interesting. The scarcity is there. People are going to keep losing things. I have a couple ledgers of, I mean, I know what I'm doing, but I could guarantee that half of my friends don't want to take that step. So the self-custody aspect is pretty important in this long-term game. And then again, we saw earlier, Heinz, you mentioned the ultimate bear case is kind of if the whole grid goes out. I mean, I would have to think that humanity is intelligent enough and resourceful enough to rebuild the grid at some point. We could be talking about years down the future.
If the whole grid goes, we have a lot more serious problems than to worry about Bitcoin.
I mean, absolutely, for sure. But just in the context of this and the durability of Bitcoin, again, I see it as it's going to be many years before we really get shaken out of, I should speak for myself. It'll be many, many years before I ever get shaken out of my position. And I could speak for myself that I'll never sell my Bitcoin for fiat. If there comes a time that I need a home, a roof over my head, or some sort of good and service that could prove to be more useful than the Bitcoin I'm holding, then you don't care about what the fees are. You just have to acquire that next asset, right? But I'm still not even seeing a clear vision in 50 years from now, say 25, 50 years from now, where we're all going to be, where our level of conviction is, where the story is going to be. It is exciting. It does suck people in on a daily basis. So that's the tiny bit of skepticism that I have about this whole system.
What do y'all think about that theory of how essentially Bitcoin's going to be the deal, if you will, and then it's going to essentially be backed by like the USD? Like, in other words, everybody's going to be like transacting in Bitcoin, kind of like the whole Michael Saylor thing, right? Just to give a broad stroke view of, because I've watched several of his videos, and that's kind of like what I deduce in general. Have y'all seen the interview? It's like 6-minute video when he's talking to Sean Hannity from Fox News. And Sean's like, hey, explain it to me like I'm a child, if you will, like gives him that whole deal. And then Michael Saylor kind of goes on his soapbox. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah.
No.
Have you guys seen it in the chat? Has anybody seen it in the chat? 'Cause we could play that and kind of get a clear understanding of that, or I'll just link it on the description. But man, it's
if you have it ready, shoot it up. Let's watch it real quick. It's like 6 minutes, he said.
I'll put it in the thing. Pleasure, everyone got it one. Yeah, for sure. So I've been what's it called? Messaging with this gentleman on X. So I'm going to be reaching out to him, and I'm hoping to do a couple podcasts with him. He thinks he can help the channel somehow. I'm not exactly sure how that all works out or whatever, but he likes to do the research and stuff. So I may be hiring him to do some of the research on some of these companies.
He was the guy that was
live
on.
research.
TJ, he was the guy that was on.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, Diego. Yeah, so that's why I wanted to put his comment on there, because we weren't able to say bye because we had to take off. But I'll reach out to him on Next. Super nice guy. He messages me a lot on Next, but he's always like real polite and stuff. He's got that persistency about him that I really like. And like, I don't mind people being persistent, just don't be like a dick about it. You know what I mean? And so I'm definitely looking forward to getting to know him a little bit and seeing if I can maybe pay him to do some of the research on companies, because I just need, it's hard to keep up with all these trades, dude. Like I really only want to have like 5 in the portfolio, but my God, are they going to be that big? Because you know what I'm saying? Like at some point it just doesn't, unless it's the SPY or something, you know what I mean? At some point it's just too ballsy, even for my level of aggression. So anyway, let's watch this real quickly, man. I think that we'll get some benefit out of it, and I'll play it on a faster speed or whatever it's called. But hey, I've been DCAing a little bit. Y'all see that right there? 10.555. So I'm about a point. We're about a 0.4 of a Bitcoiner. So we're Satoshis, or what do we call? We're Sats. Is that what it is? Is that what it is? A fractional Bitcoin. I'm a SAT. Is that what it is? I'm a SAT.
Just a SAT stacker.
I'm a SAT stacker. Can't be a full Bitcoiner because shit's expensive, man. Yo, can't collect any cover call premiums on this shit.
Not yet.
Not yet. We're working on it. So anyway, let's go over here. I got this queued up. So let's see what's going on here.
In the S&P 500, which historically only gives you 9.9% returns annually.
One thing seems very clear, and that is that cryptocurrency appears to be gaining more and more momentum. For example, El Salvador recently announced residents there can pay their taxes with Bitcoin. Silicon Valley titans, whether you like his politics or not, CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, he's promoting it as the way of the future. So do you know what a blockchain is? What is blockchain technology? What are the differences between Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a bunch of other cryptocurrencies? What is a Bitcoin wallet? What is an exchange? One thing I can say is that the phenomenon and interest is very real. Here to break it all down, MicroStrategy CEO Michael Saylor is with us. All right, from a distance, I have been following you. I have been studying you. I have spent hundreds of hours with two particular friends of mine. They broke me down. And I wish I knew more. I still can't explain the algorithm. I know what an algorithm is, but an algorithm that never has a final answer, I have a hard time understanding. Why don't you break this down simply for people like me that don't fully understand it?
Okay, well, let's start with the basic principle. People came to the United States for two things, property and freedom. And Bitcoin represents property and freedom to 8 billion people. Satoshi created a computer program that would run in a distributed fashion on computers all around the earth. And that program creates 21 million virtual coins in cyberspace. The way it works is he created perfect digital gold on an open monetary network. And so that means if you wanted to save $1,000 and you wanted to have it beyond the reach of a company, a CEO, a government, a bank, and you wanted to have personal custody of it, you could have that with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a technical solution to give 8 billion people property rights. If I can own $100 in my hand as easy as I can own $1 billion. And we've never had that in the history of the human race. So what does it mean to El Salvador? Well, in El Salvador, you have a bunch of people that don't have a bank, and they don't have assets, and they don't have access to Wall Street. So when their relatives remit money back to El Salvador, they lose 10% of their money through money transfer agents. Once they get the money, they lose 10 to 20% of its value a year because they're storing it in a currency, not in an asset. The exciting thing about Bitcoin is Bitcoin lets you save your money in an asset that goes up in value, and it lets you move that asset at the speed of light all around the planet. And what the president of El Salvador realized is, using the Bitcoin network, they could cut $1 billion of cost in remittances every year to their people. They could put themselves on the world's first digital monetary network. And instead of their people losing 10 to 20% of their value a year and 10% when they move it, they're going to actually make money, and they're going to be able to move that value around for free.
Michael, let me ask you this. I mean, because you talk a lot about the history of sound money and other cryptocurrencies, but you really think it's Bitcoin. You think Bitcoin is the breakout for a reason. Why over, say, Ethereum or any other one?
Bitcoin is the dominant crypto asset network. It's the oldest, it's the strongest, it's the most secure, and it was engineered to do one thing well, which is to keep track of 21 million virtual coins in cyberspace. The other cryptos are applications, and application networks are focused upon functionality or performance. Bitcoin is optimized for durability, integrity, security. If I want to store $1 billion for 1,000 years, I don't want a lot of bells and whistles on it. I just want to know it's secure and nobody's going to change it. So why Bitcoin? Because Satoshi started with a model of gold, and he got rid of all the defects of gold. If you took gold and you said you can't mine anymore, you can't use it for jewelry, and nobody can rehypothecate it or short it, and you could take personal custody of it in your head, and no one can steal it from you, you would have a better gold. And so Bitcoin is designed to be that long-term store of value. And of course, humans have been looking for a way to store their life force in a store of value for thousands and thousands of years. It's kind of part of the human dream.
What do you say to critics that worry that it will lose all of its value? Or what do you say, clearly governments, some seem to be dead set against this. What do you say to them?
Well, first of all, it's the most successful technology in our lifetimes. It's grown faster and more powerfully than Google or Facebook or Apple or Amazon. And it's a network and an asset that's held by about 150 million people, and we're adding 2 million people a week. So other than the dollar and the euro, it's the most widely held monetary asset in the world. And there's every indication that nation states are embracing it. Jerome Powell says it's a digital asset. Christine Lagarde says it's a digital asset. The head of the SEC taught a class on it. I think that people understand it's not a threat to the dollar, by the way. What's going to happen is the US dollar is going to be the world reserve currency, and it's going to run on billions and billions of mobile devices. And the digital asset that underlies that currency is going to be Bitcoin.
Wow. I will say, my friends got me addicted. I'm a student. I'm learning. I'm still on the first chapter of sort of like cryptocurrency for dummies, but I can't read enough of it. I love reading your stuff, and we appreciate you sharing it with us. Thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
So, man, he said a mouthful there. Dallas, welcome to the Wheelers. I know you're over there dressed like RoboCop, so I know you're at work. I appreciate you tuning in. Please don't get in trouble on our account. I'd like to ask you, where do you see Bitcoin 15 years from now? I'm of the consensus that I think it's kind of gotten too big to fail because the story is just too good, and all the big money now has their hand in that cookie jar. They realize that the cookies are nice and sweet, and they figured out how to make money with that asset class. So why would they? I feel like it's in their best interest to keep that asset class around and just let it do what it's going to do, because they figured out how to capitalize on it already. And then everybody else has their own schools of thought. Eddie thinks that the story is just, it's like the campfire story that just keeps getting better and better with time. Mark's not a total Bitcoin maxi, but he's definitely not bearish. And then Bill's kind of like, he thinks it's a great trading asset.
I think it is too big to fail at this point. 15 years from now, I mean, it might The government might cancel it and come out with their own form of digital currency. I don't necessarily think it'll ever be used like for payment, for like everyday life. So we really have no idea. But I mean, maybe like if you read the Bible talks about one world currency. So maybe that'll be the one world currency.
Right.
We have no idea. I think crypto will be around, but will Bitcoin specifically continue to develop as quickly as it has in the past decade? I don't really know. I think every like bear market, they'll try to kill it probably while it's down, but we've already been through several and it still made it out. So of course no one knows, but I think it is too big to fail at this point. If I had to say one way or the other.
I hear you, man. I hear you. Well, guys, I'd like to switch gears, if you will, because
Thank God.
there's more money that has to get deployed. So I'm looking for a trade. What stocks? Are we stocking? Let's start with Dallas. Dallas, I've been watching some of your videos. For those of y'all who don't know, Dallas has a channel called Exploring My Options. Just picked one of the best channel names that you could have ever thought of. So congratulations on just the name of the channel. Now you got to grow the channel. But that's the hard part. But dude, what are 3 stocks that you got your eye on, Dallas, that are either in the portfolio already, but they're maybe not as big a position as you would like them to be? Or what's something that maybe isn't in the portfolio, but you really would like it to be if the opportunity presents itself? Because I feel like a very underutilized tool in our tool belt is a watch list, guys. Like, to me, that's my go-to move. It's not logging onto X and seeing what this other dude said or didn't say. It's like, what's my watch list? Like, the first thing that I look at, even before the actual positions, if I have cash to deploy, is how's the watch list looking? Is it presenting any opportunities that I've been waiting for? And maybe this is the time to pounce. What's on your watch list, Dallas?
I put together some notes, so I'm sorry that I missed the beginning of the stream. I just wanted to take like a second to run through these notes, because to me, it doesn't really matter like what I think Bitcoin is versus what you think Bitcoin is versus anyone thinks Bitcoin is. I think what everyone should care about is there a massive opportunity to make money on this? Is it going up and to the right? And if it is, how can we profit off of that? I think that's what most people care about.
Yeah. So what does the market think about Bitcoin, right? Because that's really what matters. What does Mr. Market think about Bitcoin?
Right. Because if Bitcoin does what I think it's going to do in the next 12 months, it can crash and burn for all I care after that. As long as I secure my financial wealth for me and my family, I don't care if it dies at that point. I mean, really, that's what crypto especially is like dog eat dog. Like it's player versus player.
Really
so I put together just a few notes as to what I'm looking at. So if we look at the Bitcoin monthly return chart, we can see that Q4 of this year is when everything should start to climb. The Bitcoin average historical performance of Q4 is 88% for the last quarter. So if we see an average return on Bitcoin, that would put it at 120K by the end of this year. Number 2, we have M2 money supply has now entered expansion after reaching deepest contraction level since 1960. Also, rate cuts. We have rate cuts, right, which unlock liquidity, which then pours into risk assets, which push prices higher. And crypto, being the ultimate risk asset, is likely to get some of that liquidity. It's important to keep in mind that the Fed normally cuts rates because of an underlying condition in the economy that is bad. So the key is we're either like sink or swim. Like if we go into recession, Bitcoin's not going to follow the normal 4-year cycle, in my opinion. If we do have some type of soft landing, then I think these cuts are good. But normally after cuts, you do see a big drop in financial markets. Also, less risky assets become less appealing during rate cuts because you're not able to earn that high yield anymore. So I know I've gotten a lot of like emails from different brokerages like we're lowering our interest rates on all these money market funds. We also have the 4-year cycle playing for us. We also have ETF flows this cycle, which has never been had before. And with ETFs, that's pretty much people like if you're buying like IBIT or whatever, it's probably because you just want to buy and hold. Because I feel like those who are like real into crypto probably don't want to use the ETFs because something could happen like over the weekend and then you can't get rid of your Bitcoin until Monday. We also have options now that have been approved. We have retail that is not in yet into crypto. We know this because Google trends for crypto are down, YouTube views are down, and Coinbase is not the top app. We have presidential elections going for us, which I think Trump will obviously be a better president for Bitcoin. But even if Kamala wins, I think because of the uncertainty that's removed, which is really what's causing the fear, Bitcoin's still going to do fine if Kamala's elected. We also have FTX repayments, which most of the people, in my opinion, that get their money back from FTX are going to put it back into the market, or at least a portion of it. We also have China stimulating their economy now. Financial regulators held a surprise press conference yesterday announcing various stimulus and support measures, and some of that is definitely going into risk assets. And then lastly, we have BlackRock CEO pushing Bitcoin. So the way I look at it is I'm pretty heavy into crypto. I would say like 30% of the portfolio is in crypto. Not, I don't have any Bitcoin, but it's in crypto. The way I look at it is this is a gigantic risk reward play. So it's like, let's say the portfolio is $10,000 just for easy math.
Right.
30% of that would be $3,000. I see the risk as I lose half of my money. So I'm losing 15%. I'm losing 1,500. So now the portfolio is at 8,500. Like that's the worst case scenario in my opinion. Is all the money I have in crypto goes down half, and now I'm at 8,500. Versus all of those things I just listed playing in our favor. I think if you're in Bitcoin, I don't think like maybe you have a double, maybe 150%. But some of the miners, some of the proxy plays, some of the altcoins, certainly I don't think he was taking a shot at me when I asked the question, but Carlos basically implied on one of the last podcasts that altcoins are kind of gambling. I disagree. I think if you go down into the depths of altcoin, that can be the case. But if you're looking at some of the top altcoins, these are projects that are backed by institutions such as BlackRock, such as Ondo Finance. So I think your drawdown is 50%, which as long as you're managing your risk is doable. But I think your upside could be 500% if you're in some of the proxy plays. So like, am I willing to risk 15% or a 50% drawdown in a small portion of my portfolio versus 400 to 500%? I think everyone would do that, would take that every day of the week. So to me, that's like all that matters. It doesn't matter if I think it's a hedge against inflation or digital gold or whatever. It's like, here's the opportunity. I just listed like some things I think we have going for us this particular 4-year cycle, which I think could make a massive move for cryptocurrency. And I think, I won't say it's like foolish if you don't take that opportunity, but I think it's like at least worth considering, even if you don't agree with like Bitcoin's the future. I think this is like kind of a no-brainer risk reward. So that's my opinion.
Nice.
I like it. I mean, I like it. It's well thought out. You know, it's well thought out. What do you think about me calling it funny money since I learned about it in 2014 when I realized that the white paper was published on Halloween of 2008. I was like, well, isn't that appropriate? This hocus pocus, abracadabra, funny money bullshit out of thin air. The story just changes and changes and changes with time. It was supposed to be as simple as peer-to-peer finance, decentralized, so that the government isn't sticking their hands in your business, their nose in your business. And now it seems for the last couple of years, we've all been wanting for the government to like intervene a little bit and help Wall Street out so that they could make it available to the masses because we wanted to go up and to the right. So what do you think about the story? I feel like the story has changed a little bit with Bitcoin. In Spanish, we call it putting crema on the taco. They keep, adding a little secret sauce to it a little bit to make it more flavorful.
I mean, I know I used to like really dog on people who were like used to talk about Bitcoin at work and stuff. Like, it just seems so silly of an idea. And there were some people I knew that had a good amount of like money into it, and I was just like, man, you guys are like stupid. Like, seriously, Bitcoin? And then, I've definitely come around to it. I'm not like, I don't think it's going to change the world. I think it's definitely just like, to me, it kind of would be like more of the digital gold asset. Like, to me, millennials, like, I know, like, I have no desire to like go buy some gold, but like Bitcoin, I don't know, it just seems like a reasonable thing to have a small percentage of your portfolio, even if you don't agree with it. Like, the majority of people are agreeing with it at this point. So just put a little bit in there, and like, I think it's worth it. We all do that, by the way, with many things in life. Like, even if we don't agree, we see the trend and like just follow the trend, instead of like just hating on it till the end of the earth and then being sad you didn't have a little bit of it,
Dallas, I hate. I'll be honest. I hate Bitcoin. I own a little bit of it, just in case.
I'm agnostic to it. I don't care what it is. I just want it to make me money, and I think it will.
That's the way, man.
it.
You know what I like about Bitcoin a lot that I don't talk about on the channel much because my wife doesn't like me to go here? It's the only asset class that has no politics whatsoever in my mind. I don't have to worry about a CEO. I don't have to worry about an earnings report. I don't have to worry about shit, dude. People either want it or they don't want it. That's the law of supply and demand. And I just like that it just kind of stands on its own 2 feet. or the millions and the 21 million feet that people give it, right? Because it always comes down to this finite supply of the 21 million Bitcoin. And I love that it doesn't give me any of that stress. My most bullish play ever in the stock market is Tesla. Like, I've never thought that a company was going to do what I feel like Tesla is going to do. I have said it a handful of times that I think Tesla will be the most valuable company in history. In fact, I think you'll be able to add like the top 3 companies, like 2, 3, and 4, maybe even 5. And I don't think those market caps are going to top Tesla's. That's how big I think Tesla is going to be. But that being said, there's a huge bull case named Elon. There's a huge bear case named Elon Musk. You know what I mean? And there's the biggest key man risk that has ever been associated with an investment in my mind. Because I said sometimes I think Tesla would be better off if Elon wasn't officially the CEO anymore and maybe just like a chairman or a spokesperson or something like that. But the reality is this fucking Tesla would tank by like 50% the minute anything happened to Elon, or he even hinted at resigning. I feel like I think Tesla would go down like 50%. Raise your hand if you think that it's anywhere from 25 to 50%, literally like over freaking night. Like, do you think Tesla would tank that much? I do. I think 25 is a for sure. I think it should go down probably 50% overnight. Would there be a V-shaped recovery? I don't know. I think it would be more of a wait and see because I think that Elon commands that type of multiple because he's an alien. That being said, I don't have any of those worries with Bitcoin. So from that standpoint, it's a very easy asset class to hold if you are a hodler. If you just want to hold on for dear life and let a story play out. You don't have to really follow much as far as the news. Like Bitcoin never does anything. It's always the people, right? I'm just saying, Bitcoin in and of itself doesn't do anything. It's like I used to work in the oil field. The rig never killed anybody until people went on it. You know what I'm saying? The people, it's always the people. It's always a people problem. It's not a Bitcoin problem. It's not a key problem somebody was saying here, right here.
The negative is that there's also no earnings behind it, right? There's nothing that you can actually value. Even if you value the
that's what Bitcoin is. And Bitcoin is, to me, it was created, for whatever reasons. I don't think it was an accident that it was published. The white paper was published on Halloween in 2008. And I think that it's so that it could morph into whatever the hell you wanted to morph. It's like an artist, and they just started, and they're like, hey, this is the canvas, but keep checking in because I ain't done yet because I don't even know what it's going to be yet. Because apparently people can add to this software. Essentially Bitcoin is software in layman's terms, right? And this software is very, very complex, and it's going to get even more and more and more and more complex that a lot of people are going to pretend to understand it. And I feel like that's the greater fool theory to me. And this whole deal is that some people are really convinced that they understand it like a lot more than I think that they do. My challenge to you, my plea to you is make sure you learn how to make money off it. Because that's what's really gonna pat your stats. There's not gonna be fucking Bitcoin Jeopardy, or nobody's gonna go on there on who is Hal Finney, who is Satoshi Nakamoto. Nobody gives a shit, bro. Nobody gives a shit about your Lightning Network. Can you make money off of this asset class? Yes or no? Can you learn how to make money off of this asset class? And that being said, let's steer this conversation this way. I gotta go help my wife real quick with something.
Can I go first? Can I go first on my trades, by the way? Just because
yes.
I have a hurricane coming in, and I'm trying to. Yeah.
That is what what's his name's going to be on here? Hugo, but he said he's dealing with Yachty fucking Florida, bro.
It's just a storm on our side, but it's getting pretty bad. So
the floor is yours, Bill. I got to run. I'll be back in a sec.
All right. My first trade is ELF. I've been wheeling it for a while. The premiums are awesome. The reason why I'm actually considering to actually make an investment now is it's dropped. If not now, then when? So if you want to take a look at the chart at some point.
I got to consult with the wife on if ELF is that a buy? It's a buy. She said it's a buy, man. She loves ELF.
There you go. I'm in.
Nice.
Eddie Money's significant other said it's a buy. I'm all in. The second one, this is pure. It's a spec play, but I do like following companies that have where I have people doing due diligence for me, and the premiums are very good on it. And just with the due diligence that I've done on it, it seems like it could be a pretty significant player in the battery space moving into the future, and that's Enovix. But it's the reason why that I wouldn't actually buy a significant number of shares of it right now, but I'll trade the hell out of it and make a lot of money. And the third one for me would be Alibaba. I'm starting to think a lot of these China fears are a bit overblown. I don't think, who knows, maybe someday they'll go into Taiwan, but I do know that the government's printing a shitload of money, and I think Alibaba is going to make a lot of money off of that. And they're also having a lot of partnerships with other bigger companies now. And I think I just read up on one that they have a partnership with NVIDIA. So I think it's significantly undervalued. So I think it's probably, I'm getting a little bit warmer into the idea of actually putting money into that one and not just selling puts.
Do you know why ELF's down? Yeah. Do you know why ELF's down so much in the last month?
Yeah, I mean, their growth is slowing, but you can't grow at that, the pace that they were forever. Right. It could also, it's at the end of the day, I think they're going to continue to take market share. Their earnings per share is going to go up. It was overvalued. If we're going to be completely honest, it probably shouldn't have got to where it was. But you got to, with those companies, they're going to continue to do well, and you have a significant downturn. That's when you really need to commit to actually going in. And I'm not saying go all in, but you should definitely try to look to establish a position. So I've been selling puts. I've been wheeling the stock for a while. So I've gotten it to the point where I could buy hundreds and hundreds of shares. My cost basis will still be zero. So yeah, I right now, if I need to take advantage of the fact that it's down to 50% or close to it from its highs. So
from its all time, yeah.
It's if I'm going to do it ever, now's the time for me to do it.
It reached 217 on March 1st, and it's down to 110 right now. So that's a significant drop, but that's it's good that you've been making money along the whole way. I'm definitely going to be adding this to a watch list for sure.
And the premiums are great on it. It's a great stock to wheel. So TJ, just a summary: Elf, Enovix, Alibaba.
Dude, I love all three of those. The one that I'm most excited about because of the price range is Enovix. Elf is a real company from the standpoint that they make money. And
but I was saying, if not now, when? It's down over 50%, and I've been making a lot of money.
I've sold a couple of rounds of puts here recently on Elf, and I just haven't gone like super heavy on it. And it's just really because I haven't dug into the money yet, like as much as I need to feel comfortable at that level. Yeah. But like here recently, if I go this way, because I heard you, because I had the computer's loud and I was just stirring the kitchen. This was recently, did 5 contracts at 100 and got 1,500 to the premiums, and this thing are insane for quite a pricey stock, if you will. And then I just, I essentially locked in about 50%, 45% profit, and I was in it for 7 days. So I was thinking about doing that kind of thing, but doing something more substantial, like 10 or 20 contracts, because at these levels, it's pretty compelling. But I haven't really studied valuation. Like I haven't done an intrinsic value or anything. The only thing what really appeals to me is I look at the 52-week low and I look at the 52-week high, just real basic, and it's really compelling that it's closer to this 52-week low, and there's a lot of room to the 52-week high. Now that doesn't matter from the standpoint that there's nothing to say that it's ever going to go back to that 52-week high. But to me, when I'm looking at a company that I haven't done a lot of homework in, like if it's close to a 52-week low, that's a nice place for me to start. If I know that the company legit makes money, it's a legitimate company. I know a handful of women that actually use Elf beauty products. So that part's exciting. Enovix, it's more of a story stock for me still, but they do have a lot of things that are very, very appealing on the pipeline. And I've had Alibaba before, and truth be told, I don't even know why I sold it. I don't even know why I sold it, and I had it probably like in that $70 range. I'll look at it here in a second. It's one of those things, like, have you ever do anything in your portfolio and you don't even really know why you're doing it? It might just be that you just have this need to like push buttons, or you think like, I need to raise cash, we need to do this, China. Like, I'm not exactly sure what it was with Alibaba, because I had a winning position in Alibaba.
I like Alibaba, but I remember Jack Ma went missing for a couple of days, didn't he?
That was like 3 or 4 years ago.
That freak you out though. Your CEO go missing for a couple of days.
So this was, I had 1,000 shares at 67 and I sold them at 75. So I was like, okay, cool. At least made money, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like there was a lot more money to be made in Alibaba. And it would have been, right? You're talking about 30 grand or so, right? Because it's at like 95 now. So 77, yeah, about $28,000. Just like holding it, I'd like probably be in the hole knowing me with some covered calls right now, but whatever.
TJ, I have a quick learning segment before I head out. Jeff H. Paper Gain said Elf could drop to 80. That'd be awesome. That's the way that you start now. It's down over 50%. You start selling puts, you bring in money, you buy shares with that money, and you buy it on the way down, and you establish a bigger position. So
for those of y'all that don't know, Paper Gains does this segment with Amit on his. He's a real big personality on Twitter or an X, and he is really, really good at technicals. Like, for whatever reasons, this dude knows how to tell you when it rained and when it's supposed to rain again. because that's what technicals is in the stock market to me, is the people that tell you when to go out with your umbrella. But it's not like a for sure, but the dude does know how to make sense of those charts. Now, but again, that doesn't mean that it will, because in a big time bull market like we're in, I have reason to believe that ELF is probably likely to go up more so than down, especially at these levels. But of the three, the real company is Alibaba. Like, this thing makes money, dude. If you do tit for tat, this thing is just as profitable as Amazon, and it's a fraction. And that is, it's a money printer, dude. It is a money printer. But that being said, it's like people always say, if NEO was an American company, it'd be trading at this. Well, if Alibaba was an American company, it'd be trading like Amazon. You know what I'm saying? Like, there is a very viable comparison there. Alibaba is a very, very, very profitable company. I had Steve Fiorillo on the channel a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, did a whole segment on Alibaba for me. And dude, I left that segment thinking it needs to be a core holding in the portfolio, and I don't know what happened. Like, I just feel like I brain farted because, I held on to NEO, one that doesn't make money. I'm just saying, if you're going to own a Chinese stock like Alibaba, JD, like, those are probably the ones that.
Yeah.
But I went with NEO. NEO's worked out. I'm just, it's worked out, but it's caused me, to lose even more hair. So those are good selections. What say you, Mark?
Gotta run, guys. I'll watch, but I gotta run.
Later,
Pleasure, Bill. Be safe.
I'm gonna hydrate with some watermelon over here.
Go board up those windows, Bill.
I thought hurricane season was over.
Yeah. So, hey, I just want to touch base on the supply demand of Bitcoin quick before I give you my top picks. Just the one thing is that we started with a story. The narrative's changing every now and then. It's really nice that we have catalysts coming. But when push comes to shove, it's really a math issue, right? So if Bitcoin miners, again, I'm pretty bullish. Everyone's pretty bullish, but there's no one more bullish. Maybe Saylor, but all these Bitcoin miners are putting in hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of rigs. So at some point, if we're looking at the cost to mine a Bitcoin is, if you're doing really well, you're about 30K electricity costs. That's not all in with stock-based comp and SG&A and all that. But let's just look at electricity costs. If a miner costs them 30 grand to mint a Bitcoin, in 4 years from now, it'll be 60. In 8 years from now, it'll be 120. And then it's going to 240. So in your earlier question of 15 years from now, you're going to see people with way higher conviction than what we have now. So I just think it's a math thing. The supply is going to go from 650, 325, 162.5, and eventually you're going to have potentially trillions of dollars of Bitcoin miners, when not just publicly traded, but 20% of the network is publicly traded miners. And then you have 80% that's out there in the void. At some point that's going to total trillions and trillions of dollars, all kinds of conviction. And again, with the supply crunch, I just think there's no other way. It's just math. The scarcity is going to prevail, and opinions are going to go out the window as math just adds up to with the amount of money. And again, like, rigs are getting better, but we're at about 13 joules a terahash now. There's talks of maybe 5 joules a terahash. There's never going to be a moment where it's just free, right? Back in 2008, 2009, 2010, it was practically free to mine Bitcoin, but nobody had conviction. So as the costs go up, there's going to be a certain, again, speculation, but there's going to be a certain boost. Now, whether it goes to 250,000 15 years from now or not, yet to be seen. But again, I'll let the miners do their thing, and that's kind of where I'm putting my bets. Just really quickly, if I got to give you 3 stocks, my top 3 mining stocks are Iron, Cypher, and Bitfarms. I've got a fair bit of CleanSpark as well, but I'm trying to diversify, not going pure play Bitcoin miner. I like these hybrid plays. I like that Iron has a 1.4 gigawatt facility that they're building quite rapidly. And again, speculation that maybe a hyperscaler is going to come in, hopefully they'll sign a good deal like CoreWeave did with Core Scientific. But again, those are my 3 top crypto miners. But 3 stocks I bought today, just quick. I bought HIMS, TMDX, and Stone Co. I think those 3 stocks today, they all hit numbers that I thought were really representative, that I see it as being good buys. So I see them as being highly undervalued and cheap based on a growth, EV over growth. So their revenue growth over the last 12 months is all just mind-blowing. So again, Iron, Cypher, Bitfarms for my crypto miners, but today specifically TMDX and Stone and HIMS, I think, are 3 fantastic growth companies that have nowhere to go but up.
So why do you like Iron so much versus like Clean Spark? And how do the two like balance sheets fundamentally? Because I mean, the reason that I still back Riot is because I think that they still have the best in class balance sheet, and I like companies that can't go out of business mathematically, because you're talking about the math, right? So to me, the most important thing is, do you have enough runway so that the plane can take off, right? Because at some point, all these companies run out of asphalt, right? That's how an airport works, guys. You take off. At some point, we got to have liftoff, or there's a crash landing before there's even a takeoff. So that's where we're at with the miners, right? Like, there's only so much runway before these things elevate and fly, right?
Well, just a couple of quick points of why I personally am choosing Iron over Riot is their debt to equity.
I understand over Riot, because Riot has such an amazing infrastructure, but yet they do so little with it. I get the bear case on Riot. Trust me. Can't wait to ask Jason Les personally here in a couple of weeks. But the thing is what about over Clean Spark though? Like how Iron over Clean Spark? Is it because of the hybrid approach that Iron is allegedly taking, or what is the bull case there?
I mean, they have 0 debt. So if you like Riot's balance sheet, Iron's is even better. Arguably, again, this is just debt to equity looking at it. They have absolutely no debt. And they still have 179 million shares or so. They're tapping an ATM. So, I mean, that may go up to 225 million shares. But those are a couple of the metrics that I look for. I look for a great balance sheet. I look for a reasonably low share count because, again, you say it all the time, dilution. I think Iron really managed that well.
Yeah, it's right here, guys. It's right here. Like, there's the saying with the miners, right? Dilution is the solution, right? to financing. And this is one of the only miners that you're going to see this on. It might be the only miner that I'm aware of that you have less shares out.
And then Iron's the only profitable miner, even though they just broke profitability. I think there's something to be said about diversification. So again, pure play miners like Clean Spark, Riot. I mean, Marathon's no longer a pure play, but again, even Huts kind of went off the radar. When you look at these pure play miners, I think they're just all in on Bitcoin. If we see any kind of compression, like Dallas had mentioned, like say a 50% compression, that'd be kind of a worst case, yet to be expected from maybe the top. Say we had a top next year in December. If we have a 50% pullback, a lot of people are going to be sweating on these Bitcoin miners. Again, their margins are pretty small. If they're diluting to the pace that they are, it's going to be really hard to find profit in these companies. So a lot of people are hating on Iron just because they don't hodl at all. Again, debatable. I like de-risking a little bit. Looking at these HPCAI margins, they seem very lucrative, but you need to have everything in play. You really have to have the contracts lined up, and not just partnerships, right? Long-term viable 10, 15, 20-year partnerships. If you get a solid contract in the billions of dollars, Iron's going up back to 15 in no time. And they were just at 15 a month and a half ago or so. So we've already seen massive compression. I sold all my gold, all my silver, put it all in Iron, and I trimmed my position, and I can buy my truck out finally. I've been stressing about this. I still have hair, but I don't know how, man. I just made a disproportionate bet on iron, put most of my net worth in there, and they're up a good 30% over the last 3 days.
Good for
Tiny
you.
pullback today, but I have absolutely no stress in buying iron. Anywhere under $7, I think, is a great zone.
Well, the one thing I'm learning about iron is they're a very well managed company.
They're not domiciled in the US, so that's kind of the recent FUD. A lot of people aren't really bullish on Australia as a home.
Australian, right? They're Australian companies.
Yeah.
They do have a really awesome balance sheet. People can argue how they got there. The reality is it's a very vicious business. It's a very capital intensive business, and there's dilution or there's taking on debt.
And you saw how CleanSpark ran up, right? Their growth was unbelievable. Iron is putting that to shame. It's really unparalleled growth, what they've seen in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
So that's something you can check out too, is just the pace of the growth. Mm-hmm. And personally, I think it's well worth it. I believe they tapped their ATM when the price was up higher. So we'll kind of see how management does on that front. I wouldn't want them diluting at $7 or $8.
Right.
But the market cap right now at about 1.4 billion, in my opinion, is still incredibly undervalued.
Agreed. Well, fantastic, man. Thank you for that. What about you, Eddie? Talk to us a little bit. What place do you have in your pocketbook there? Your microphone is on mute, by the way. Your microphone's on mute.
I got one play for you guys, and it's Hood. It's only Hood. I've probably been buying since about $8. I didn't get a chance on the August 5th dip to buy anything, but I've averaged up to about $14.50. And now I've just been buying cash secured puts up until the Legend Awakens event. That's 10/16, and everybody, you guys all probably watched the Gold Standard event, and that was like amazing, right? Dropped a hell of products. They're obviously known as disruptors in the space. So I'm just looking forward to more disruptive products for traders and investors. And I think it's going to be the hype around calling it the Legend Awakens is pretty intense for me. I'm like, oh, the Gold Standard was like, oh, we're all VIP. We have wealth management. Boom. But yeah, the Legend Awakens is like, are they going to bring folklore from like Robin Hood and Lil Jon and stuff? Or are they going to bring us like legendary trading tools that disrupt the market once again? And I mean, I've seen some threads on Twitter. I've seen people say like, they're thinking some crowdfunding stuff might go on. They have some crowdfunding sponsors there. And that was a little bit of the hints towards that. So I've seen some of the news, but it doesn't seem like anybody has any like solid, great guesses. Again, I don't think anyone would have predicted, the gold card or any of that too before. So they keep it pretty tight over there at Robinhood. So yeah, just I bought a few cash secured puts around those dates. I bought a couple before 10/16, bought a few after $19, and I think I did a few at 21.50 because I'm so low right now. It's not going to really affect me too much that I go into the 20s. But yeah, I just haven't wanted to buy this whole time, and now I got this event to kind of rally around. And yeah, I think it's cool because after watching TJ do his will stuff, I've paid attention to like when you're supposed to do it, how and I haven't been doing it for more than a year now, but it's all been paying for me. So yeah, these are great times to try to run it in. If you see any dips, these are the times to drop in. Anything under 20 for me on Hood is a go. So I'll back the truck up again if it drops to 14. But
yeah, I posted on X. You had $1 million to deploy, and you wanted to sell a cash secure put in the 30 delta range. Where would you go? And Ben, the cash flow, the golfer guy, he's been on here a couple times.
Yeah,
Ben Pearl. He was like Hood 21.50 puts, and the math checked out to like 31 or 35% annualized return, and I'm very, very comfortable with Hood at those levels.
Yeah, and they obviously have a lot of room to run. They're more than just a stock, just a stock trading brokerage. they're pretty much a bank without having a bank, without having the bank
A charter.
title. Yeah. So it's like, why get a charter if you already have credit cards, you already have a spending thing, you already got a crypto.
And I was like, well, you know, like SoFi has a banking charter, but that's actually kind of a hindrance from the standpoint that you can't mess with crypto. And Hood can. And then Amit was like, well, you know, people kind of like treat their brokerage like a bank. That's why you have like a debit card with Hood, and now you got a credit card. I mean, dude, it's kind of making a very compelling case if you're willing to be objective about it. If you're willing,
they step right around those rules.
Hood is kind of doing everything that I want SoFi to do, but it's just it's more of a hip company now. I do get excited, you know. Hood's got like all the NFL stuff, the stuff that they're doing with like the golf and the NBA and all that. It's all fine and dandy, but at the end of the day, is it ever going to be like that hip company? Like Hood's kind of like a hip company, and are they ever going to use like that SoFi app? The way that, you know, we all use the Hood app, or I use the Hood app. I know that Dallas has Schwab and also Hood. He used to be more into Hood. So those are all things to consider. Dougie Dallas, welcome to the stream, my man. Pleasure to have you here.
Yeah,
I didn't know you were going to be on. Hold on one second. What did my crazy lady do with my cat? Okay. There we go. What up?
There we go.
What up?
Way to go, Palantir.
Baby. I got the swag now. Thank you, Dougie Dallas, my man.
You got the swag, man.
Certified stock trader.
Just to remind me of that $12 covered call. I think I'm going to go get a 12 embroidered right here, just so everybody knows that I left $125,000 on the table, baby.
Yeah.
Are you gonna leave the sticker on there?
Yeah, dude, this bad boy's never leaving the office. What are you talking about?
Hey, look, Jerry Jones owns the Cowboys, and he wears all kinds of stuff, right? He wears all kinds of Dallas Cowboys gear. I own Palantir. I can wear all the Palantir gear I want.
So anyway, let's look at this. Let's look at this Robinhood real quickly that Ben was talking about. See if the math checks out, because I was thinking about pitching it to Amit. Like, dude, this is, you know, the thing is there's no people there though. That's the one thing that I don't like about the Hood thing sometimes, is there's not a lot of crackheads on Robinhood Avenue at times.
You didn't end up running any you didn't end up doing any options in the public portfolio?
Yeah, this is it. This is the portfolio. So we have the 5,000 shares, and then right now we have covered calls at 23 for 927, and we already have 50 $21 puts for 1018 that are probably doing pretty well. Yeah, we're already on 13%, so I might just be able to add to these and call life good.
That'll be 2 days after the event too, so you know the price will definitely be.
Yeah, that's why I mid-picked them. That's why I mid-picked them. Actually, he specifically said on the stream, like 2 days after the event, so you know we probably be good right here with all the mojo. You know, the trend is your friend and all that stuff. So I'm thinking about making that one like a 200 cash secured put type thing. Because I keep going to the fire a little bit. Dallas, I'm going to get to you here in a second on your trades, but I want to show this one here. This has been, have you ever touched the stove as a kid? Because you're just kind of, you know, you're a little curious. You're a little curious. So you like touch it, and then it's like, you know, it's hot, but then the next time you touch it just a little bit more. And then that one time you touch it a little bit too long and your finger gets stuck to it and you're like, oh shit, where's my skin, right? So I feel like I've been playing with fire here with Riot selling a shitload of cash secured puts recently. And I had just closed these out, made like 14, 15 G's. I closed these out at 750. And then because Riot was at like 770. And then it went to like 740, and I was able to sell 200 more again for, you know, a month down the road, essentially, and picked up $42 a contract. So I did 200 of those, and I was thinking about doing as many as 1,000 at these levels. But my God, Mark, talk some reason into me, bro. It's just like, yo, but it's just, I just at these levels, when you get very comfortable with the way your horse runs and everything, I just feel like if the market wants to keep giving me all this money, I feel obligated to take this money. It's just tough. But I mean, let's talk about the bull case and bear case, because I know you follow Riot a little bit, and I'm not sure if any of you guys follow Riot real quickly. They have a very amazing infrastructure potentially, but for whatever reasons, they haven't been clicking on all cylinders, and it's been going on the better part of a year now, if not a little longer. So I don't know how much longer investors are going to give them that latitude, that leeway to be like, hey, you had the winter storm that you dealt with building whatever the hell it was. I know that you're expanding, you bought all this land and you got to build it out on all that shit. There's only so many resources to go around, etc. But then it's just like, okay, you have all these miners online, but you can't keep them online. The uptime's not real good, etc. Like, I just wonder how much longer are investors going to be willing to ride it out with Riot. I feel, call me crazy, Mark, but I think they got less than 6 months before they totally fall out of favor with the investors. Because it's just been, I mean, at some point you got to show me, you got to show me the Bitcoin production. Like, do you have the people in place to put these miners online and have everything running smooth over there? Because on paper, you look amazing, but it's just like that team that's got the all-star team on paper, but for whatever reasons, they can't gel and they're not winning any games. That's kind of what I feel like Riot is to me sometimes as a Bitcoin miner.
Well, except for the one giant 800-pound gorilla in the room, which is the actual Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Right? Because if that just starts running, it doesn't matter whether it's the good miner or the bad miner. The whole thing's going to take off, right? I know you did. I didn't get a chance to watch the Finance Junkies from last week, but I know, Mitt's right.
I think the biggest issue with Riot is they're aggressively trying to take over bit farms, and that isn't going to work. So we'll just see how Jason's ego can hopefully check itself. There's zero chance that Bitfarms is going to sell to Riot, and Riot, as much money as they have, they don't have enough to buy Bitfarms for what they're worth. And especially with their recent Stronghold digital acquisition, they're paying $175 million for that. They can implement whatever poison pill they want, really. Give their execs golden parachutes. I just think Riot needs better management, personally. And I mean, I would never tell you what to do because you're going to manufacture the win regardless. As you know, if their balance sheet is good, they're going to last. If Intel's still kicking around and people are still talking about Intel, people will be talking about Riot in 6, 12, or 18 months from now. So I think you're going to do just fine. And then some with Riot. I think at some point, Bitfarms holders are going to have to be very cautious, because if Riot already owns 19.9%, you're looking at about 90 million shares or so. I don't know what they're going to do with that. A lot of Riot shareholders think that they're going to 2, 3, or 4x that Bitfarms investment. I don't see how it's going to happen. I think they're both kind of deadlocked right now. So Bitfarms' price has been capped. Riot revoked the order. So there's an opportunity for Riot to step up. But I mean, at this point, all Bitfarms needs to do is drop another ATM, and every single time Bitfarms raises any money, Riot needs to buy 20% of those shares just to keep their stack. So I think Riot's played a really tough game. I think they're backed in a bit of a corner now. Mm-hmm. And honestly, the inefficiencies are known, but you can't stop that massive facility. We'll see if immersion cooling is their key to success. A lot of people aren't very bullish on immersion cooling, just on the longevity of the rigs.
Right.
But again, there's just so many unknowns. I just think that the way you're doing things, you're going to make it work. Your cost base is probably like -$2 anyway, right? So
No,
I
it's a
feel,
little higher. It's a little higher now because I increased the stake of the shares. But I think the adjusted cost basis is like 220 or something.
I
So
mean,
I
I'm
like
sure
it.
most people would take that all day.
And then the 100,000 shares is good for about 20 to 30,000 bucks a month in premiums. So I mean, I don't mind waiting it out with them, and then I've been generating on average about 25 to 30 a month in premiums on the cash secured put side. So Riot for the last 3 or 4 months has been good for almost 50 G's, dude.
Yeah.
And but that is a question that I have for Jason. If they'll take my questions over there when we go to this event in October, is do you think that you guys have just been a little too distracted with the prospects of acquiring bit farms, because that on paper would have made them the largest Bitcoin miner in the world, or should you also been tending to your own garden at home? Because I feel like it's hard to do both, right? Sometimes, like, so you got to pick a side, and I feel like they invested a lot of money, a lot of energy, a lot of resources into this Bitfarms takeover that, in my opinion, doesn't look like it's going to come to fruition. Would that time have been better spent maybe getting another building online, or figuring out, hey, why aren't your miners going out there and solving these algorithms? Because most of these miners have the same types of machines, right? So why is it that that the computers in Texas aren't running as fast as the computers in other places, as an example?
They're just forced to curtail. They've signed a deal with ERCOT saying that they're going to curtail a certain amount. So I think that's a challenge that Iron will be faced with as well. And I think that's why they're holding off on developing their 1.4 gigawatt site. Again, they're building it up, but they haven't confirmed whether or not it's going to be all HPC AI, or if they're getting Bitcoin mining rigs and putting them in there as well. So I'm personally not a fan of curtailing, because what that says is fiat is still important. So there's a bit of a disconnect in Riot's strategy, I find. And again, time will tell, right? Could sort itself out with a doubling in Bitcoin's price. I think everyone's going to be rushing into Riot. And in fact, a lot of people are kind of thinking it's found its bottom. I would probably say so, but I'm not a buyer personally. I would rather just buy Bitfarms or the other plays I mentioned, Iron and Cypher.
You don't think it's so risky to buy Bitfarms, knowing that they have a company that can dump 20% of those shares anytime they want?
They're going to have to scale out slowly, or else they're really just going to collapse the price, which would be quite possibly the greatest opportunity in the last few years in the Bitcoin mining space. So I'm ready for it, and I welcome it. Jason Les, you should dump those shares any day now. I'm ready to buy as many Bitfarm shares as I can afford.
One thing you need to know about Jason Les is he was a legit top tier poker player for about 14 years. So I think that this is the biggest hand of poker that he's ever played.
I mean, he's holding a 2 and a 5. So we'll see what he can do.
He's got a fucking inside
straight.
Straight drop, baby. He's got like a 2-outer.
Yeah.
So you're saying there's a chance?
There was a chance. When there's a TJ, there's a way.
Dude has got balls of steel, though, bro. Like, to go in the way that they did. I mean, there might have been a different way to try to skin this cat. You know what I mean? But they went rogue. I feel like Riot went a little bit rogue. They might want to change their ticker.
Yeah. Well, now that the offer is revoked, it'll be interesting to see if they do come up with maybe they'll have to be somewhere around $3.50 to $4 US, but I really don't think Bitfarms is selling even at that. So
what was the original offer? I forget. It was like
$2.30 US, which again, it doesn't value any of their growth. I'll say I just watched Bitfarms CEO interview today, and he did seem a little bit hesitant on their growth. They're supposed to be at 12 exahash. They want to be at 21 by the end of the year. Right. That's going to take a lot of good things to happen in Paraguay, where they've put in a fair bit of money.
Right.
And they've already taken their T21 rigs, and they're going to put them in Stronghold Digital's facilities. Instead of waiting until December, they were thinking maybe November, December, they'd be operational in Paraguay. So I think personally that's a good move. I think it shows that Bitfarms management is on top of it. Beyond that, they have international expansion plans. I don't like the fact they're domiciled in Canada, but that's just me. I'm a little biased. It'd be great to see them do maybe an RTO. I'm not sure if they could do an RTO or if they would, again, merge to Stronghold to take their ticker. But again, we'll see. There's so much expansion coming. There's going to be all kinds of M&A because every small miner is going to pretty much dip in the next 12 months unless you see a 150K Bitcoin. I just don't see how that small miners like half an exahash are going to make it work. So even the fact that Bitfarms paid $175 million for Stronghold, again, they're doing that based on potential power contracts, which is going to require tons of capex. But I definitely trust in Ben Gagnon over Jason Les any day.
Gotcha. I'll definitely tell him you said that. I'm kidding.
Absolutely.
I'm kidding, dude. I ain't going out there to make any enemies, dude. I just want to know, because I got a big position in the company, relatively speaking. I mean, I'm just a little retail investor. But
yeah, and good on you for going there, because you want to look a CEO in the eye, right? Back in the day, before YouTube and all this, you couldn't really get any kind of vibes from CEOs, right? Everything was written. So to read a balance sheet, to read a news statement, and again, right, if you're a good poker player, you could probably bullshit me and stare me in the eye and lie to me, and maybe I'll believe you. But I just think it goes a long way to be there in person. I hope you get to meet him. And again, nothing against him. I just think the strategy hasn't played out as they thought. I just think they tried to hit Bitfarms when price was compressed, and they thought they were making a decent offer. But then within a few weeks, Bitfarms was over 230, and it just kind of seemed to be an invalid offer.
Right. So when I did the research on Riot, and it was me and 3 other guys, we concluded that Riot would be the biggest Bitcoin miner by the middle of 2025. So it shit or get out the pot time, because we saw the infrastructure. Because in 2020, Riot was aggressively setting up their expansion when everybody else was kind of sitting on their hands. So that's what I was seeing. This is what the research was telling me. This was going on during COVID. And they were like, we're not sitting on our money. We run up, we're going to dilute, like they were pretty open about it too. And I really liked it as an investor. Like these guys are giving us the play-by-play. We're going to build out Rockdale. I think it was like 700 megawatts. I don't know that. I mean, the research was a while ago. But I believe that at the time that was going to be the biggest one in existence. And then they were going to go after, and they're going to do something that hadn't been done, which is 1 gigawatt, which is what Corsicana is supposed to be when it's all said and done, right? So when I added all of that shit up, I was like, dude, unless Marathon stays the course, because Marathon also buys Bitcoin, they were kind of doing MicroStrategy before MicroStrategy. Marathon Digital was playing that game. The majority of the Bitcoin hodl that Marathon Digital had on their balance sheet was actually purchasing. It wasn't mining. And the people that didn't do the research early on, that weren't in the miners like I was in 2020, and going on, this is, my 5th year now on these damn miners. It's a love-hate relationship, you know what I mean? But I just saw that they had the infrastructure, and they had diluted enough, and they hadn't taken on irresponsible debt, whereas Marathon had chosen the debt route for the most part. And just to hit them with dilution after, you know what I'm saying? So that's when I lost faith in management over there. And that's when I moved the money over to Riot. Because I was like, at least over here, they were like, dilution's the solution. You know what I mean? And then we're going to have all of this money to be able to essentially fund probably about 75% of the expansion. Like Riot has enough money to fund about 75% of their expansion, but they already have all the miners in place for 100% of their expansion. So I liked all of those things. I like that they had the energy locked down all the way to 2030 in some instances. Like, I mean, dude, this is like I researched. It wasn't just me; it was 3 other nerds. You know what I mean? So I like looked into this thing, and I'm like, I'm gonna place my bet. And I was looking at my journal from 2020, And luckily I found it. And I'm like, dude, when was my time limit on Riot? Because I feel like they kind of been dragging their feet for a hot minute now. And it says middle of 2025. And then this opportunity came to go to the roundtable discussion. And I just feel like it was a bit of a godsend for me, because I'm going to be able to get all these questions answered to see if these guys think that they're going to be the biggest Bitcoin miner in 2025. Because I never hear them say any of that stuff like on the earnings calls or anything. They're a little bit meek about that kind of stuff, but they don't really get asked that kind of question. And I feel like in 2020 they were like more brass, and they were more like, hey, this is what we're setting out to do. Rock with this. And I feel like the tone's kind of simmered down a little bit in my mind. So I just want to see like where I want to just kind of put my finger on the pulse, if that makes sense. Like, where are they at? Like, where are they really at? You look them in the eye, like I said, it's a hand of poker, right? And then I'll get a good feeling. I'm not saying that anything that can happen over there, like I'm just going to go sell my position, because, I mean, for whatever it is, it's still good for about $50K a month right now, you know, and I can't find that anywhere else. Just to answer Amit's question real quickly, at these levels, Riot's the easiest one for me, because I know it's the best. And at these levels, I know that it can make me more like 35-40% a year, even if it doesn't fucking move.
Yeah, easy.
Because the premiums are so good. So where else are you going to go make 30-35-40% a year on a stock? You don't even need it to go up and to the right. It'll just flatline if you want to. So that's why I love Riot so much at these levels. But granted, a lot of the Bitcoin miners can do that. So you got to ask yourself, do I just want to make premiums? Because at the end of the day, those are the crumbs. Or do I want to go after some of those, Palantir type capital appreciation, right? Capital gains, the share gains, right? That's the share appreciation. That's where the big money is. And is Riot going to give that to me? I don't know. I sure as hell hope so. But I don't have the answer to that. But I'm making enough monthly that, I don't consider that dead money, from the standpoint that I'm not that below my cost basis right now. And I'm able to sell very aggressive covered calls, and that's bringing in substantial money. And I have enough money to strangle it with the cash secured puts as well. So it's really worked out nicely for me. Now, if it dips to $5, maybe I'm singing a different song, right? But at these levels, I like the risk reward. You have anything to add, Mark? I saw you.
Yeah, just one question. I'd be kind of curious to hear from Jason is how do they manage with obsolescence of these rigs?
Right.
So in my mind, the reason I'm not invested in Riot is they're kind of legacy. So with their new facility, they're going all in on immersion.
Yeah, it's all portable standby.
If immersion technology ends up reducing the lifespan of their rigs, how do they deal with that obsolescence? Again, we have iPhones that last maybe a couple of years if we're lucky. These rigs at the most are going to last 3 to 4 years. But even at that, if you're holding on to 4-year-old rigs, you write them off, the depreciation, right? That's fine. But the cost to replace these rigs in a 1 gigawatt facility, I'm very curious by next having what their game plan is. And again, how do they deal with obsolescence? And you see Hut just dropped off the map because they didn't seemingly have a game plan. They had a CEO transition out, and now they're not doing anything. They're just doing hosting agreements. And so the only thing that'll save that company is if they wait long enough to get these magical 5 joules per terahash or whatever they're going to be able to come up with. Technology will improve, but we're going to kind of hit a certain cap here. So if you have the time and you do remember, that would be a great question, I think, in order to get a better grasp of how CapEx is going to come in.
Jason has actually addressed that question a couple of times already. And the latest contracts that they have with miners are that they're essentially able to retroactively upgrade the other miners. So they're kind of like first in line to get the new stuff to finish building out, and then retroactively go, I guess, retrofit or upgrade, because that's the issue with this thing. It's like you spend this whole cycle upgrading just so that it's obsolete by the next cycle, right? But I mean, it's like no different than having a home computer, guys. I mean, if you're on a payment plan with a firm or client, or like if you're playing that game, if that's where you're at in life, by the time you finish paying for this iMac that I'm on right now, bro, this thing, there's like 3 or 4 models that are better than it. That's just the game. So whenever you need your computer to be absolute top notch, because it gets rewarded for being, quote unquote, lightning fast at solving these computations, because that's how they get rewarded, their little Satoshis or whatever they call them. You got to have best in class to have the best chance, because there's a ton of these computers all trying to solve the same problem. And the one that raises their hand first, that's the one that gets rewarded the Bitcoin, or what can be turned into Bitcoin, right? So anyway, let's answer Amit's question real quickly, because I definitely appreciate the $10. Because we don't make minimum wage on this channel when we do these things, just so y'all know. A Wheelers episode brings in about $15 when it's all said and done, just so you know. And we Joe Rogan these things. Sometimes they go 3 hours. For the Wheelers, if you knew you would get 25% returns for the year, either investing in one stock or in wheeling every single week, month, which one would you do? The wheeling or the buy and hold? So for me personally, what I would do is I would sell an at the money put in the distance, and then I would lock in all of that premium to lock in the 25% in one shot. And then I would take all of that excess money and I would try to buy some shares with it if it's at an attractive price for me already, and sell covered calls on that to try to play that portion of the portfolio to the upside, and then hopefully have enough money left over to sell some short dated cash secured puts so I can run the coverage strangle the entire year. And then I can look up and I might be more like at 30, 35, 40% at the end of the year. So it's a little bit more work for me, but that's the way that I would do it. I would start it with the backstop trade at the money. That's going to hopefully give me more like 30, 35% in one shot. A company like Riot can do that. SoFi, not going to do that at that level right now. There has to be more volatility with the stock, and there's not enough. Like the IV rank's not high enough on SoFi right now. Riot could do that for me. I'm sure there's another handful of stocks, miners, that can definitely do that for you. Riot's that's the one that I know the most about. That's why I'm the most comfortable, guys. I'm not saying that it's the best miner right now. I've never said that. I think that it's going to grow into the biggest one. And if Jason can deliver on all of these promises, and before I followed Jason, I followed Chad way more than Jason. Chad was the guy that ran Riot. They acquired him for the Whinstone merger. And he was Mr. Giga Chad, right? He was the Bitcoin mining god, if you will. And, he's no longer there, because I think they fired him after that winter storm. I don't know that for sure. But I know that I saw that Chad was like crying on his YouTube channel after he was like saying all his goodbyes to the people in Rockdale and Corsicana and stuff. And now he's gone off to do like some clean energy shit or something. I actually have his phone number. He texts me every once in a while. So I feel like Riot hasn't been the same company since he hasn't been part of it. That's just my feeling, but it might be because I've developed a little bit of a relationship with Chad over the last 3 years. So, those are all questions that I would like to get answered. So for me, my pick would be Riot, because it's real easy. We're going into the October, so I feel like I have all of that working in my favor as well. So it's just the easiest place that I feel I could make some pretty big money in the market right now. But that might not be the case 2 years from now, but I feel like it's the case for the next year, maybe year and a half even. So that's me. What about you guys? Let's just go around the room, to answer Amit's question.
I would definitely wheel as opposed to just buy and hold. I think he was saying, like, if you're guaranteed 25% regardless, would you just buy and hold or would you wheel? For me, I would wheel for sure, because you're increasing your brokerage cash all along the way. Right. You're selling puts, you're selling calls, rolling when necessary, and increasing your brokerage cash all the way to that 25%. Whereas if you're just buying and hold, you're not creating any new brokerage cash. So that's going to allow you to, buy more shares or do whatever you want with that money, as opposed to just buying and holding.
Agreed. What about you, Eddie Money?
I know this is the Wheeler show, so I'm supposed to say I'm going to wheel and deal my way out, but I'm just going to buy and hold, man. I'm happy with 25%. I'm not greedy. I would back the whole truck up on 25%, knowing I'm about to cash out on that. I'll be fine with that.
compound that over a bunch of years, and I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
If you look at 25% versus wheeling, if you're only going to get 25% wheeling, you're better off holding in that case, buying and holding, because then you don't have to pay any capital gains taxes. So from a from a tax efficiency perspective, it would be better just to hodl. So that's why.
Yeah, but you could also argue with that same cash, you can now invest the cash you made from wheeling and outperform your capital gain tax as well.
Right.
You can make that argument
No,
as well.
but that's why I answered the question the way that I answered it, because I'm taking into account all of the capital gains and everything else. And at the end of the day, I want to outperform. So he gives me a benchmark of 25. I'm like, well, my strategy, it's more like 35 or 40 in my mind. Because guys, my goal is 50% a year. I know it sounds crazy, but that is my goal. But I've only hit it twice. I've only hit it twice. One didn't count because it was COVID. Everybody got 100%, right? And then what was the other year? Was it last year that everybody was, I think on my wife, that's when I finished up my wife's account, and it was like 116% or something stupid, right? Like it was the year that was last year, right? When Jesse Dow was saying he got like 800% or something crazy, buying a bunch of leaps and stuff. So, in a bull market, there's a lot of people that are really, really good investors, if you will. If you pick the right asset classes and you go heavy enough, you're going to get rewarded. What about you, Dougie? What do you say on this one? And then you had a question that you wanted to ask about early assignments or something like that?
Yeah, buddy. It is buy and hold all the way. For two reasons: taxes and time. I can sit there. I mean, I spent a lot of time already on the stocks that I do wheel, looking for the next strike price, looking for the next thing. And I look at it, almost all week long, trying to keep up and keep track of where it is, so I know what my next play is going to be on the next week.
Right.
I got all that time back, and I was guaranteed 25%. I get all that time back. I get, my tax bracket is going to be 24-ish% for regular income, so that I'm losing a bunch of that. So yeah, I'll take the long-term capital gains, and I'll take all my time back that I can spend looking for my next investment, looking for my next winner.
Yeah, I don't really disagree with that, because time is the most precious commodity, right? I mean, everybody gets all excited about the 21 million Bitcoin. I need to get more excited about those 1,440 minutes that you have in a day. That's all we got. You know what I mean? There's only so many days that we're going to have on this earth, and I don't know much about Bitcoin, but I know this: I ain't lived to 2140. You probably aren't either. So let's make the most of the time that we got on this earth. Like that's what's a lot more real than Bitcoin, and just keeping it simple there.
5,600 minutes per year.
Dallas, do you have your three stocks that you're stocking real quickly, man? Because I'd like to get that in, and I have not done any timestamps, guys. I'll run this back at 2 times speed, and I'll put timestamps. They'll show up later.
Yeah, 3 stocks I'm stalking. 2 of them I'm just sticking with the 2 that I called several weeks ago. But the one I'm still stalking is Meta. It won't pull back. I'll give myself a little. I'll give myself a little credit, because I really wish I was buying back in the $80, $90, $100. But I did put a lot of money into it 2 earnings reports ago when it dropped like 25%. That's when I was going to start building out a position.
400, right? It dropped to like 400.
Yeah. So I think it's right around there. So I put in $20,000 at that point. That was going to be my first position, or my first bullet into that position. Hopefully, hoping they would go lower, but it just didn't. So that's one I'm still keeping my eye on. I think they've come to a little bit. I mean, they admitted wrongdoing with COVID-19. Zuckerberg has kind of not endorsed Trump, but he's come out in support of Trump recently.
That dude got so
what do you think about Trump?
He got so red-pilled somewhere along the way, didn't he?
Somewhere. I don't know what it is. So I mean, I feel like Meta's kind of like coming along. And
no, but hold on 1 second on the Trump thing. Didn't Trump say, because I saw a clip that he said that Zuckerberg would go to jail if he found out that he interfered in that election for So would Zuckerberg really want Trump to be president? Because I saw that clip. He said it, unless AI said it for him. I don't know, right? Because I mean, with AI, I have no idea what Joe Rogan clips are real anymore. Because I saw one clip where Joe Rogan's talking about like Christianity, believing in Jesus, and I know that ain't true. You know what I mean? So I don't know what's real anymore with artificial intelligence. But I'm just saying, I saw a clip that Donald Trump's like, I'll deal with Mark Zuckerberg if he really interfered with that election after Mark Zuckerberg had written that manifesto, month ago.
But I mean, Zuckerberg didn't have to do that. They kind of self-regulated that. He put out that letter saying we dropped the ball and we were pressured by Biden's administration to suppress COVID-19 stuff. So, I feel like he's coming to the light a little bit. So Meta's on my radar for sure. The other two that I'm sticking with are Shopify and DraftKings. I know Mark likes Shopify. He has to. It's pretty much like
the only stock in Canada.
Yeah, it's like the biggest stock in the whole Canadian stock market, except for like a Canadian bank, which is not very exciting. And Shopify is really creating a moat. I mean, it's if you want to buy or sell anything and create a small business, like you pretty much have to use Shopify. It's just best in class, and it's up 66% since the August 5th lows. So the premiums are great as well. So I'm definitely looking to build that into a bigger position. And then the last one is DraftKings. I'll stick with that call. I just feel like even like recently they got approved to invest. Private equity can invest in NFL teams now. And I feel like that will eventually trickle down to like somehow everyday investors being able to also invest in sports teams. I mean, not a lot of people know this, if you can see this, but you can invest in the Atlanta Braves.
Invest in the Cowboys, baby. This is our year, Dallas. This is our year.
Kind of hard to see it, but I think that sports betting with DraftKings kind of being best in class in that, somehow they will get a piece of that pie as well of enabling everyday investors to be able to invest in their favorite teams and maybe even one day players. I was thinking about that. That would be really cool if you could buy stock in like upcoming rookies and hold that, see who performs over the long term, just like, growth stocks, growth companies, and players who you believe in. Although I was also considering that would put a lot of pressure on the players and people who lost money, like possibly targeting.
But I think there is something like that because I've invested money in. You can stake poker players, and that's a publicly traded entity. So I'm gonna go back to see when that was, because that was like in 2016, 2017. I used to put money to back this poker player, Phil Ivey. And never won the freaking World Series. The most talented person to never win, it's him. Like as far as the main event, if you will. So there's ways to invest in that kind of stuff already, I feel.
But I think, if that were to expand to the NFL, NBA, MLB, I think that would be really cool. And I think as long as there's money to be made, that those organizations will figure out a way to monetize every cent that they possibly can. And I think DraftKings, will capitalize from that. So those are my two sort of like, companies I'm stalking a little bit. I do own a good amount of Shopify. I don't own any DraftKings. I have in the past, but don't right now.
Yeah, me too. DraftKings was almost the first stock I ever sold a covered call on. It actually ended up being Space. And then I did DraftKings right after that. Same.
I know. I pitched it to you a couple weeks ago. It's doing really, really well.
Yeah, I owned it at $30, and then I sold it. This was like in 2020, 2021, dude, when I was trying like anything and everything. And I don't know, I haven't held it for a while, but it finally went up. It finally went up to like 40 something or so when I sold it. They weren't a profitable company. And then I sold puts on it sporadically over the last 3 years or so. but then I never really, I lost touch of the story. I remember Kramer saying that he thought that they were getting close and they were going to figure it out and stuff. I want to say the CEO might have even been on this channel. And, but then I was like, I just lost, I stopped following the story. Bottom line is I stopped, it's like you watch a sitcom and then all of a sudden you missed out 5 or 6 episodes and you just never pick up where you left off. Like that's kind of what stocks are to me sometimes is you stop following the story for whatever reasons, you lose interest. And I just lost interest in DraftKings. And I feel like it's such a huge market, dude. Like sports betting, dude, is a multi-billion-dollar deal. And people are not likely to stop betting on sports anytime soon. I mean, hell, I do it, illegally over here.
I can't remember the exact number, but I saw a stat came
Not
up.
legal in Texas, TJ.
In my demographic, I mean, in my age group, more people are sports betting than investing. So it's pretty crazy.
That's true.
I agree.
I gotta go, guys.
I think I read that as well somewhere as well. Someone was saying was talking about young investors, and they were like, well, these guys are gambling more than investing. So whether it's lottery tickets, sports betting, my brother plays Bovada a lot, playing parlays on Bovada, and I'm like, I mean, come on, man. I don't know what he says. They pay out in Bitcoin almost instantly, so I think that's cool. But yeah, there's more platforms that are going to come up, try to disrupt DraftKings, whether it be legal or illegal way. There's all kinds of loopholes around there.
Yeah.
Don't they have to rein that market in eventually? I mean, how many of the NFL owners own stakes in DraftKings or ESPN Bet or any of these other entities? So they're the casino that you're betting against, but then they also employ everyone who's part of the game, including the officials. How is that legal?
Well, I know that I was recently in Vegas, and I'll know one thing that was kind of interesting is Las Vegas has the Raiders now. And the Raiders, there was no bet on the Raiders. Like the Raiders are off the board in Vegas at the Venetian and the Palazzo. So I think that there's things that they do that allegedly make it hard for you to like gamble at certain things because of the conflict of interest. And now there's BetMGM, which is an app, but it only works for me when I'm in Vegas. And I've considered like, is there any way to like turn my phone into like a VPN or whatever the hell, and so that I could use that app when I'm in Texas? You know what I'm saying? But I haven't been able to circumvent that system. I'm sure there's a nerd out there that'll reach out to me. I'm like,
the last time I tried, they wouldn't let me set up an account, even when I was in Louisiana, because I wanted to bet on my horse. My horse, I wanted to put a bet on my horse.
Sure.
Not someone else's horse, my horse. And I still couldn't set up an account.
Yeah. So I've been
got to VPN that or something.
Yeah,
I was in Louisiana, so the geofence.
Oh yeah, you should have been fine then.
They wouldn't let me make an account because I had a Texas address.
Wow.
I have BetMGM and it works, but only when I'm in Vegas.
BetMGM, okay.
Yeah,
So they
I was looking
let
at
you make okay.
I'm looking at this DraftKings thing. They have a few lawsuits just this year from the NFL Player Association and the MLB's Player Union, just for using likeness of the players. So they don't have any licenses to use all the jersey numbers and faces and stuff that they use on their app. That's pretty bold of them.
Yeah, again, I haven't followed the story, but I'm just I probably know more about Bitcoin than I do DraftKings right now, and that ain't saying much. All I'm going to continue to say till I die that it's funny money, abracadabra, hocus pocus, and it was created on Hollywood for a fucking reason, bro. Doug, let's get to your question. What do you have, Doug?
I have the superstar from today, Rocket Lab.
Okay, it shot up to like 9 or something crazy.
It
right?
has, hasn't it? It is right now, I guess, after hours. I don't know if this is after hours or current or the close on Robinhood. It is $8.69. Okay.
I see it.
I have $6 covered calls.
Okay, expiring.
Price of the option right now is $2.70.
When does it expire?
It is
Tomorrow.
10:18.
Okay, so you got a little time, but
I got a little time.
not a lot of extrinsics. You're at $6.
Yep. So correct me if I'm wrong. The
right
extrinsic
now,
value is 1 penny away now, right?
So right now you don't have any. Well, yeah. So I'm just trying to do math in my head real quickly. You don't have any extrinsic value right now, but I don't know where Rocket Lab closed, right? Because that's where Garcia.
869. 869.
Yeah. So you. I mean, it's going to re-rate in the morning though, because you didn't have the shows called away tonight. So you're going to pick up. Let me go back over here. You're going to pick up.
You're going to get 1 day of theta decay.
Yeah, which is in 1018, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're going to pick up a little bit of money here, which isn't much, right?
Half a cent.
And you're looking at your delta, so it's a foregone conclusion that you're not going to own these shares anymore. So what you really got to consider doing here at some point, probably middle of next week at the latest, is I assume you want to own these shares still? Is that the game?
I would like to.
So you got to look. You got to make good on what 260. So I'd probably look. Over here in this area here, and then I just start looking, and then it doesn't look too good right now. It doesn't.
So I don't need to roll for a positive number. I just need to roll. I just need to give a little back. I don't need to give the whole thing back, and I don't need to roll out till January 2026 to get.
No, I get it. You're not trying to.
I just need to reduce the extrinsic value to below the value of the option.
So whenever you roll, the one thing you got to look at is you're rolling for what, right? You're going from a 94 delta because you're trying to get to a more delta, like a favorable position. I like to call it delta neutral.
Yeah.
And so ideally, first of all, you don't want to let it get to this point. But
no, I knew I was cooked when this thing went up.
Rocket Labs has been on a little bit of a tear, right? So that part's tough. And then, I mean, just today alone, I mean, you were already cooking. Now you're overdone, right?
Yep. I was saying, oh man, well, the last week of September should be pretty bad for everybody. So even if this thing has a 20% pullback now, I'm still cooked. So
yeah. So I would look to January, and I'd probably put like a 7 handle on it. I wouldn't go more than that because it just comes down to math, right? You don't want to give back 60 cents just to qualify for 40 cents on top of that. It doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Right.
So, ideally, if you could put an 8 handle on it, that's great. Now, why did it run? This is, again, I don't follow the story. I own 20,000 shares of this thing, by the way. I don't follow it. I don't even sell calls against it. Now I just looked at this. I'm going to go sell $10 covered calls on the damn thing. So, but it's like, why did it run? Did they announce something? Like, I don't know, because this is what I do know. This is what I do know about the company, is that they don't have enough money to keep going. At some point, they're going to have to dilute it more. And
which they may have done today for all we know.
There's going to be a pullback at some point when they do some at the money offering or some minor bullshit.
I would think so. Yeah. Earlier, Amit was prognosticating it might be like a short squeeze coming in because it is pretty heavily shorted, like 18-19%, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's also what's his name talking Paper Games. I don't know the guy's name. I just know him from.
I think it's Jeremy. I think is his name.
Jason.
Is that his name? Is that me? Why is that? Is that me or not?
Yeah, that's you.
Avatar. Okay, that's cool. So Rocket Labs. Let's look at it. Let's look at Rocket Labs.
Hey, gents, I'm gonna have to bounce.
All right,
thanks, Mark.
I really appreciate all you. Dougie, nice to meet you finally, and Eddie, nice to meet you too, man.
Nice to meet you, Mark.
I really appreciate it. And if Dallas is around, really nice chatting with you guys. We'll link up again soon, my man.
Absolutely. If you're on Twitter, drop that in the chat for me. I'll follow you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you, Mark. Thanks for the
Take care.
So let's look at Rocket Labs, man. Oof. So man, they launched vehicles. That part's all good. Look at that. This is what's exciting here, that they're making money on the launches. They're still obviously losing money hand over fist. Revenue is going up. All that part's looking good. But let's look at the squeeze potential. I mean, it's high, 18.7. It's been higher before.
Yeah.
But that's a lot. Institutional ownership's on a slight decline. Insider activity, a lot of people selling, probably for obvious reasons. The shit's been going up.
What's their debt? What's on that summary? What's their debt?
Let me look here.
This could be one of the Chris Patel specials, getting your bad debt refinanced.
All right. So here's cash and debt, and that's a big candle.
Yeah.
And they got some debt. $394 million
recent
worth.
too. Yeah.
They got more debt than they do cash, but when you add the bonds and the cash is more than the debt. So there's that. They have diluted because most of these companies, that's what they do.
Yep.
And
and handing out the SBC. So so I feel like, this has to pull back, right? You don't run up 30% in a month.
Yeah, I've been saying that about Palantir for 2 years now. I'm a little gun shy on that. You know what I mean? I'm a little gun shy on saying it has to pull back.
One of these companies though is profitable, and one is not.
No, yeah.
One has $5 billion in cash. The other has debt.
That's fact. That is a fact. That is a fact. Yeah, I definitely look to roll though, man. If you wanna hold on to it and stuff.
Okay.
Like if you're like legit long, you don't want to sell even if there's a pullback. See, that's what cover calls sucks, is because you get stuck in a cover call situation and now you lose your liquidity.
Well, I've never been this close to assignment before, so I didn't know what to expect. And I did the NAM math, and I knew I think there's 1 cent of intrinsic value, or I'm negative 1 cent on intrinsic value. So how quick is Robinhood going to call that away from me if I've got no intrinsic value?
Yeah, it didn't really have to do with Robinhood. It has to do with the person on the other side of the contract, right?
Okay.
And whoever they pair you up with. But just keep this in mind, dude. This is this happens. I still have my $12 cover calls on the books. And those expire, not too, in 3 months, and they're down 268%. I mean, this shit is crazy, right? Like, you're talking about this thing's going for 25.38, and you go the 37.30 subtract from the 12, that's $25 already. So there's like 8 cents. I got like 8 cents of extrinsic value. I wake up every day hoping that these shares aren't even there no more, so I don't have to look at them. But it just, it hasn't happened. So I'm like, okay, cool. Let me go collect, not even half a penny. And look, I got a 99 delta, bro. I mean, that's
brutal.
So
unfortunately, it's not a big position on the cover calls, but it's just the novelty of it. It's the first time it's happened to me.
Yeah.
So I normally roll well in advance, but I was just kind of like, well, let me let this play out. This can't keep going up and up and up.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, I appreciate your time, man. We can close
out. I thought about doing this one right here, but even that one doesn't make sense. Thank you. We're almost done, maybe like 1 minute.
Oh, hey, did you take a look at that thing I sent you last night?
I haven't looked at it, dude. I haven't looked at it yet.
Okay.
The Google, right?
Yep.
I looked at it, but I haven't studied it at all.
Okay.
I did a debit spread on it one time, and I think it broke even. Chris Patel gave me the trade. I just did. It turns out I don't like debit spreads at all, though. And I don't know why, because when you buy a share, you're out money, right?
Right.
I'm just saying, just psychologically, debit spreads don't really fit my eye like a golf shot.
Well, for me, it's like, okay, well, you could buy a leap, but you pay all this extrinsic value on the time, right?
Yeah.
But if you sell the next strike price up, you're basically collecting most of the theta back, right?
Yeah.
So you're really just dealing in the alpha and the delta there. You're taking the theta almost out of it.
Yeah. I like that trade on this stream right there. I actually looked at that exact trade today. But man, I got to get rocking and rolling, brother. We've gone another marathon session. I appreciate you guys. Anyway, this is TJ the Will Deal signing off for Dallas, Bill White. We had Diego join in, Eddie Money, Dougie Dallas. I mean, we had a good showing here tonight. So I'll go back and put some timestamps later. Anyway, as always, may your sky stay blue, stock screen. Peace out. God bless you guys. Catch y'all on the next one.
Bye, everybody.
Take care, bud. Appreciate it.